Good day, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This is Viper of Viperland, and I'm back here in Chaos Head. We continue to make progress, and we continue to raise more questions. Pretty much every time we play this game, just questions. Also, hello, Ramen Seventh and Topaz. How y'all doing tonight? Welcome to Viperland in the chat. So yeah, I believe, if I recall correctly, we had just encountered Darth Spider, but then we also had a flashback to what was it? What was the flashback to? I don't remember exactly. No, we really didn't. Yeah, we're fine. Yeah, Darth Spider is Shogun, so, you know, it's fine. It's normal, it's fine. I also really want her to be okay, and we're gonna find out. Yes, I'd lost consciousness. And then, afterwards, how did I end up in this hospital? I couldn't remember. At least I didn't think I'd come here on my own 2 feet. Maybe I'd been carried over by an ambulance. Hazuki-san was writing something down on the clipboard she carried. Must have been holding paper or something. Was she writing about my condition? I confirmed the time by peering at the plain-looking watch on her wrist. After 6 a.m., I must have slept for quite a while. Excuse me. Oh, wow, immediately, alright. Even so, why had I been taken to this hospital? We gotta... It's a very... You sound very sure of yourself, Ramen. So yeah, we'll go green? Hazuki-san being here meant this was the hospital I usually went to, which is convenient. I mean, also probably close by, so, you know. Lost all faith in your decision-making skills. Understandable. There certainly wasn't anything strange about them bringing me to a general hospital, but something about it didn't quite fit together. You know, the last time I was here wasn't like a big, perfectly white... Well, last year was also only here for a quick psychiatric paperwork session. So we don't actually know what the hospital rooms look like. The question of why had Suzuki-san come to check on me nagged at me. After all, Hazuki-san was a psychiatric nurse. If she had come to look in on me, didn't it mean this room was part of the psychiatric ward as well? Oh, well, time to hallucinate. It's not warbly, though. Even so, I'm surprised. Eyes wide, Hazuki-san studied my face intently. I never dreamed you would be awake, Nishijo-san. Her way of putting it made it sound like it was strange for me to have woken up. Was she being sarcastic? Did she want to say that someone as shameful as me would cause less trouble for everyone around me if I stayed asleep for the rest of my life? I mean, I think it would be bad for anyone else to say those words, but now that you've put those words out there... Oh, hold on, I also forgot to... Give me a second. I gotta turn off the recent follower, because it's all just hotspots, and I just don't want to look at it. Having even a nurse imply such things to me made me seriously want to die. Yet the facts of which Hazuki-san spoke were unexpectedly and utterly different from what I was imagining. You've been in a coma for almost a month. Oh. You kept sleeping and we never found out why. What had she just said? How long was a month ago? What day is it? Please listen calmly. Today is October 28th. Hey, it's almost Halloween! October 28th. It matched the date in my memory. 1 month earlier would mean ever since that time I'd witnessed the staking. Oh, it was all a dream. I went speechless. Ah, yes. I must be sure to let the doctor know. This isn't the time to be dawdling around here and taking your temperature. Please, wait here. I'll call the doctor over soon. After rattling this off without leaving any room for an answer, Hazuki-san dashed hastily out of the hospital bedroom. I was comatose for a month? I muttered dazedly, looking down at the palm of my hand. In other words, everything from the past month had been a dream? I couldn't possibly have anticipated the "it was all a dream" twist. Ugh. But mysteriously, there was nothing unpleasant about it. I had a surprisingly easy time accepting it when I heard it had been a dream. Then, when I thought about it harder, things like D-swords and making delusions real were simply impossible. Everything had been an illusion, purely delusions of my own creation. It was too bad that meeting Remy had been a dream. But Shogun wasn't targeting me, and I hadn't become the laughingstock of all Japan. And Nanami hadn't been abducted. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. My field of sight blurred, and when I looked up to keep from crying, Hazuki-san entered. Her eyes went a bit round when she saw me. Oh my.
西条さん、
You're awake,
目が覚めたんで
Nishijo-san.
すね。
She soon gave me a gigantic smile. Puzzled, I found myself unable to
お
move.
体の調子はどうですか？
How are you feeling? Hazuki-san held a thermometer out to me. The gesture came naturally to her. Just sort of ended up taking it.
体温を測ってく
Please
ださ
measure
い
your
ね。
temperature, okay? I gulped as I accepted the thermometer. It was the same. We were repeating the same thing as before. Hazuki-san acted like she'd entered the room for the first time. I tentatively felt at my armpit. I'd stuck a thermometer in there just a second ago. Despite that, come on. The thermometer had disappeared. Had it been delusionary? Where did the delusion end and reality begin? Yeah, there was. Yeah, entirely possible this isn't real. I'm still used to it being like, ooh, but not always. Am I being targeted by Shogun and becoming the laughingstock of all Japan? Were those parts real? My mood dropped towards depression in the blink of an eye.
昨日ご家族
Your
がお
family
見えに
came
な
to
って
see you
西条さん
yesterday,
の意
but
識が
since
戻
your
らないので、
consciousness wasn't
日付
returning,
が
they
変わ
went
る
home
頃
around
に、今日
midnight.
は診察時間が
Hey,
始
your
まる
mother
頃に
plans on
お
coming
母
at
様が来
opening
るそうで
hours.
すよ。
Lacking the energy to answer, I nodded her. Get a stable mind for once, right? Mom, I must be the most disgraceful son in Japan. No, in the whole world. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's not great, but I feel like on a global scale, there has to be someone out there worse, right? While he's not a good person, he's not actively evil. He's just kinda... Yeah, there are actively worse people out there. But I still don't like him. I've been broadcast on live TV of all things, nothing more shameful than being on television. My moment of shame had aired throughout the nation of Japan. I mean, I don't think anybody there knew what happened. They saw you on a rooftop, you reached out, and then you went away. That's not the most shameful thing you could do on camera on a rooftop. Definitely not. Pretty sure whipping it out and taking a leak on the crowd below would be up there. It had definitely been uploaded to YouTube, too. Okay, well, yes, but everything ends up on YouTube. I had no clue why I'd been set up as a miracle Esper boy. On top of that, it was abnormal for them to do a live broadcast of my every little move on the day of such an enormous earthquake. I can only assume that everyone really did have their minds controlled by Shogun. Yes, the most illogical part of all of this is Shogun is against you, can control people's minds, has controlled the minds of everyone, except you, and hasn't controlled your mind because you're special. But he's also after you because you're special. That's the logical takeaway from all this. Yeah. In any case, I've been publicly disgraced. Really? This wasn't something mild enough to stop at an online lynching. Would I be able to live uneventfully from now on? I mean, also Darth Spider, yeah. Suddenly, Nanami's face rose at the back of my mind. I bit my lip and clenched at my knees. Even so, if I had been able to help Nanami, none of it would have been a problem. I wouldn't have minded even if everyone in the world laughed mockingly at me, saying, "What a pathetic guy," for the rest of my life. But I hadn't even been able to save Nanami. Yeah, you couldn't. Great big tears poured out of me.
どうしました？どこか
I
痛
mean,
みます？
for him, it's basically just sweating out the eyes. Sweating is his natural state of being, so it just moved to the eyes. What's the matter? Are you in pain? I went on weeping as I shook my head over and over. Nanami was dead. Nanami would never come back. It was my fault. My fault. Because I was useless. Nanami had died. I mean, we don't know if she's dead or not, but if she is, yeah, it's because you're useless. Feels amazing to watch him care about Nanami, even if it's just, yeah, totally too late. Coaxed by Seraton's, rather my weak heart's words, I'd been in a rush to give up on obtaining my D-sword. I viewed myself as a poor little victim. I'd chosen to stay alive, even at the cost of sacrificing Nanami. I loathed my no-good self from the bottom of my heart. If, back then, if I had tried only a little harder, even though it had been my own decision to give up, I looked back at everything. I looked back when everything was already done with and regretted my actions. That was the absolute worst thing about me. Thoughts wouldn't save anyone. Even so, I couldn't help thinking along these lines. I'd try a little harder if only I could rewind time and go back. Although if I actually did go back there, I'd surely make the same excuses and give up again. I'm always like that. I truly was beyond helping.
Nanami.
It really is. I'm sorry.
Nanami.
Well, sure, everything's fine. Hazuki-san rubbed my back as though to soothe me. There's finally some character development. Yeah, this is the first time he's really actively cared for anyone in 3 dimensions, let alone the best character. I was a hopeless guy through and through. I was even giving an unrelated nurse a hard time. But my tears wouldn't do me the favor of
何
stopping.
か
You seem to
後
regret
悔している
something,
ことがあるでもきっと
but I'm sure your little
妹さ
sister
んも
will
許して
forgive
くれ
you.
ますよ
How did she know Nanami was my little sister? Besides, I didn't need such time-worn words of comfort. Sorry, Hazuki-san, but it's not like another person is going to understand what I feel like. Nobody else understands feelings but me. I truly detested and felt ashamed of myself. Always being spoiled by others, only thinking of myself. A person like me ought to die. Maybe I should seriously give death a
昨日
try.
もしきりに西条さんの
She
こ
was
とを心配
endlessly
してい
worried
まし
about
た
you
よ
yesterday, too. Oh,
とても可
what?
愛らしい
She seems like a very
妹さん
sweet
です
little
ね
sister. You can tell someone they don't understand. Yeah, absolutely. What are you saying?
nanami は
Nanami, my little sister, she died.
死にました。
Abducted by Shogun, with her arm cut off, confined somewhere. In the end, she had probably died alone. My heart seemed about to tear asunder when I imagined it.
そうなんですか
Is she
ごめ
really?
んなさい勘違いしてしまって
Well, if this is real, then everything was a dream. If this is fake, she might be dead. I'm leaning... I don't know where to lean. It's not Warbly, but she left the room and came back and did the exact same actions again. So I don't know what I think this is. I don't even know what I hope this is. It really could go either way, and I'd be like, yeah, no, that checks out. I'm sorry, I've made some kind of mistake. Until now, I'd always thought Nanami was obnoxious, but when you get down to it, we were siblings who'd been raised together for 16 years. She always fretted over me, even while calling me an idiot and a stupid head. She'd been loud and persistent because she was constantly attempting to bring me out of my life of dissipation. Yeah, no kidding. When she brought provisions from home, instead of just chucking them at me, she invariably tried to eat together with me. Usually, a girl of her age would totally ignore a creepy otaku brother like me. Nanami spoke ill of me, but she spoke to me all the same. She'd listen to what I had to say as well. Even at school, far from avoiding me, she'd come up to me of her own accord. Even with an otaku freak and a virgin like me, Nanami always saw me as her only big brother, and an individual human being. Wow. Yeah, this was Darth Spider's dream all along. Yeah, to make him actually go, wow. She was actually a good person. Also, hey Ark, how's it going? Welcome to Viper Lane in the chat. Her existence had been a huge source of support for me, though it was too late to realize it now. But then I wonder what it meant when she called you...
ってどういう意味なのかしら
Not quite comprehending what she'd said, I raised my head. The blurriness of tears made it hard to see Hazuki-san's expression. What has she just said
眠っ
now?
てる西条さんを
She called you over and over as you slept, saying,
鬼
Bro, bro.
と何度
I
も呼んでい
suppose
た
it
か
made
ら
a strong impression
そ
on
の
me.
印象が強くて
A person who calls me that. There's only one.
それ
Is that really
本当です
true?
か
I unthinkingly sprang out of bed and pressed in on Hazuki-san.
ははい
Yes,
何が
what is?
ナナミ
Nanami came. My little sister Nanami. She came here?
いえそのはっきり
Well,
お名前を
I
聞いた
didn't
わけでは
specifically hear her name.
僕
She
の
called me
親
bro,
って言
didn't
え
she?
え
Yes.
ナナミ
Where's Nanami now?
ですから
Like I
昨日はお
said,
帰りにな
she
りま
went
したけ
home
ど
yesterday
西条さんの
together with your mother.
怪我とか
Wounded. Was she wounded or
は
anything?
いいえ特には
Make a time waster. Oh, I mean, I've not tried for any of the bigger, crazier fish, but Ramen's caught almost all of them, so I'm sure Ramen understands. Not particularly. She was fine, wasn't she? Nanami was fine.
あはい
Yes,
あ
no.
いえ
I don't know whether or not she was
ナナミさんかどうかはわかりませ
Nanami-san,
んけど
but the girl who came here
昨
yesterday
日い
seemed
らして
fine.
いた女の子
Nanami
は
was
元
alive.
気そうでしたよ
As far as I could tell from Hazuki-san's words, there was no mistaking it. Stupefied, I sat back down on the bed. How on earth? Even though Shogun said he won't give Nanami back unless I cleared the quest. Surely he had sympathized with us and released her? Or had Nanami escaped under her own power? But then how was I supposed to explain the hand that had gotten sent to me? According to Hazuki-san, Nanami hadn't been injured at all. The hand I sent to your house might belong to someone else you know. Oh, warden. Yeah, even I'm aware of the warden. Yeah. Uh-huh. Now, Ark, do you see why people might be willing to pay 5-10 million gil for it? You know, maybe. There's a reason it sells for that much. There's a reason. Partially because it looks great. Mostly because it's so much of a time sink. Oh, I believe that, Ramen. Those words hadn't been a lie. I'd been dancing on the palms of Shogun's hand. He'd only been deceiving me. No, at this point, I didn't care a bit about getting deceived. I see. I see, that's how it was. That's how it was. Oh yeah, don't get me wrong, like, in full support, and I wish you luck. I personally still think he's Shogun. I still truly believe Shogun is just part of his delusion / an alternate personality of his. Going on that route, if I am correct about that, which I might not be, there's evidence on both sides, for sure. If I'm right about that, where did the hand come from? It might not be Nanami's. Whose is it? Whose hand is that hand? Total sense of Shogun to be me. Yeah. Bragging rights. Oh, absolutely. And I agree with you. If I ever was going to try to get that fish in a tank, I'd damn well catch it myself. But I'd also damn well complain about it the whole way. While I desperately tried to grasp onto my D-sword at O-Front, Nanami must have been lazing around at home reading manga, or going to karaoke with her friends, and showcasing her shitty singing voice. Baby steps. He appreciates her, but apparently still, you know. That's true, yeah. Despite the fact that I was crying, laughter bubbled up inside me. Nishijo-san, you're acting strange. Shogun totally tricked me. It's not very difficult. What a magnificent hoax. Nanami was alive. She was alive. I could see that goddamn impudent face of hers again. I could hear her yappy, annoying voice. The thought of it filled my whole heart with relief, and joy surged through me. Thank God. My tears wouldn't stop. But these weren't the tears of frustration I'd wept previously. Thank God. I was a useless guy, beyond all salvation. Yesterday, too, I'd given up on trying to do something about it with my own strength. But even so, as long as Nanami were alive, I wouldn't seek anything else. Like I'd cared if the rest of the world mocked me with its laughter. I feel like at some point he's going to care, but good on you. Keep going. I was truly glad. Another investigation meeting was convened in the Shibuya Police Department's conference room today. All of the detectives were exhausted and looked exasperated at the thought of how many hours this fruitless meeting might continue. Around when Matsunaga began listening to the individual investigators' reports, Ban unexpectedly raised his hand and gingerly stood up. Can I have a second? What is it? Not only Matsunaga, but the other detectives and also Suwa, who had been sitting beside Ban, listened to him with dubious expressions. Wearing his usual frivolous and friendly smile, Ban gave them a quick bow with his head, then looked around. Actually, I've discovered a little something about the video that was uploaded to the internet the other day, the so-called group diving. Eh? Suwa wore a face of blatant surprise. It was expected, because Ban had investigated the film without saying a single word about it to Suwa, his partner, who he should share things with, who he was supposed to have paired up with. To be fair, we know Suwa has some theories on things and raised a boatload of death flags and didn't report back here either, so who knows? Everybody's just doing their own thing. Nobody's telling each other until, well, I guess this exact moment, but you know. Then again, the reason for it wasn't that he wanted to keep it secret from Suwa, but rather, Assistant Inspector Ban, I seem to recall you being in charge of the staking investigation. Why have you been looking into the group diving? Well, that was pretty much what it came down to. Ban had taken independent action, ignoring instructions from headquarters, and if he got Suwa involved in it, a young detective with a bright future ahead of him would get tied down by his superiors. He'd avoided that. But honestly good, yeah. I'm going to do something stupid. I don't want him to get in trouble. Just me. No, well, for the moment, please take a look at this. Laughing foolishly, Bond took 2 elongated photos from a file close at hand. He stuck them to the blackboard with magnets. Both of these photos were taken from Cornelius Tower's rooftop, the scene of the group diving. I extracted the right photograph from the aforementioned YouTube video. Last night, I went up to Tower's roof and took the left-hand photo myself. Do you notice any differences between them? No, it's the same picture. Absolutely the same picture. His demeanor full of insinuations, Bond slowly surveyed the large conference room before finally looking straight at Matsunaga. Do you think you've turned into a lawyer or something? Objection! Explain the key points in a way that makes them easy to understand. Okay, well, in this picture, you can clearly see the upper left side of the picture. But on this one, since I covered it with the other picture, you cannot clearly see the upper left side of the picture. I think I found it, guys. I think I understand. Next to Bond, Sua kept craning his neck. Nor did the other detectives make any effort to hide their confusion. The background is different. In the uploaded video, the camera is pointing northeast. We know for sure that the 5 of them fell from the northeast side. One is a better camera, see? Well, he did just print out a still from a YouTube video. That's never gonna look good. The other is an actual photograph. So, like, you know. And starting at 2:39, or 3:29, wow, numbers, the camera pans her way across from side to side for about 15 seconds. The picture from when it was pointing east is the photo on the right side over here. To the east of Cornelius Tower, in other words, toward Roppongi. Tokyo Tower shows up distinctly in the night scenery. It's red, so it stands out. But, you know, something else that stands out quite nicely isn't reflected there. Something that stands out nicely. Eyes narrowed, stroking the scraps of a beard on his jaw with his hand. Bond hiccuped continuously. Bond put on a self-depreciating smile. Roppongi Bills. Ah! The conference room burst into commotion. Indeed, one couldn't see the lights of the Roppongi Bills building in the photo taken from the uploaded video. The photo Bond had snapped yesterday, on the other hand, had clearly captured both Tokyo Tower and the lighted windows of Roppongi Bills. And so, I just happened to come across it, but in the hotel lobby of Cornelius Tower, there are panels displaying photos from the period when the tower was first built. This is one of those panels. Bond took a new photo out of a file and stuck the 2 photos next to each other. It too was a picture of the Roppongi view from the roof of the tower, but it was a daytime photograph, not a night one. Roppongi Bills shows up there, but it's in the middle of being constructed. The rumble on the conference room swelled. Matsunaga felt silent and regarded the photos sternly. Cornelius Tower was completed in 2001. Roppongi Bills was completed in 2003. According to the photo from when the tower was completed, Roppongi Bills was still being constructed and therefore wasn't very high yet. However, Group Dive took place this year, in 2008. It doesn't make sense if Roppongi Bills doesn't show up. And by the way, there aren't any indicators that the uploader tweaked the video. We'll just go with that. Don't argue how they'd find out if somebody photoshopped a video. It's fine. We'll just go with them. They're detectives. They say they didn't manipulate the video, so they didn't. So what is it you want to suggest? As though losing his patience, Matsunaga urged him on a grumpy-sounding voice. I feel like in 2008, if somebody photoshopped a video to just remove something like that, I don't know how well it would be detectable. I don't know. Hell, even these days, I don't know if they did a good job of it. I don't know how detectable it would be. Sure, you can do a bad job of it. It's super easy to notice. You can tell from the pixels. That's how you know it's shopped. But, like, there are people who are really good at it. It's incredibly hard to say, but... Senpai, you can't be trying to say that this video was taken before 2003. You mean, over 5 years ago? Oi, Sua. Bond's shoulders dropped, crestfallen. Sua had said exactly what he'd meant to imply, and he admired the young detective's mental sharpness and discernment. But when he stated it straight out like that, it couldn't help but seem much more sketchy. Bond's prudence about whether or not to say it had returned to the earth. Ashes to ashes, dust to what? Bond's prudence about whether or not to say it had returned to the earth. Ashes to ashes, dust to... I don't get what he's saying there. How foolish. You sure you haven't been reading too many novels? How dare you read? The faces of the victims captured on film all match up. It can't be who they were 5 years ago. If you got the free time to research something that futile, how about questioning a person or two instead? Assistant Inspector. I'll pretend I didn't hear anything. Additionally, I have something to discuss with you, so stay back after the meeting. Well, Bond let out a small sigh, gave up, and sat down. Well, wasn't like he thought anyone would believe him. Lethargically waving his fan at himself, he inwardly muttered sour grapes. That said, Bond himself hadn't determined the answer to why the video didn't show Roppongi bills. More mysterious things. After I found out that Nanami was alive, a doctor came to me and asked me for a number of simple questions. They were questions to determine whether or not my condition was back to normal. His normal or human normal? As I answered half-heartedly, I made the decision to leave the hospital before my mom arrived. How could I possibly face my family after having been shamed in front of the whole nation? Besides, if Nanami came, I was positive I'd be overjoyed and start bawling. And without any idea of how I felt, Nanami would yell at me straight-faced, saying, "Don't make me worry so much, you moron." Sure, okay. So I messed it up a bit. No, he was getting to that point. He just, I guess, didn't really ever think it, like, say it aloud and be like, yeah, that does sound hard to get, like, it's a hard thing to be like, I think this video was taken 5 years ago, even though all the evidence points to the contrary, except for a missing building. When I envisioned that scene, I almost fainted from embarrassment. As a result, I decided to beat a strategic retreat before I fell into such a situation. After nibbling a little bit of the horrible breakfast they gave me, I furtively left the hospital room. I descended to the first floor and crossed the lobby. Since the hospital hadn't opened yet, the lobby, which was normally bulging at the seams with old people, was now quiet and still. Yes, it sounds quiet, and it looks still. I managed to breeze out through the front entrance. Fortunately, the automatic doors opened properly for me. The nurses and physicians might get angry at me for slipping out the hospital on my own. Man, Japanese hospitals, just like Japanese hospitals in visual novels and fiction, apparently you just get up and leave, and nobody notices, nobody stops you ever. You just leave. But all I had to do was avoid going back there until things cooled down. There shouldn't be any issues with the hospitalization fees, since I'd left a note from my mom with, "Please pay them later." Oh my god. He walked out of the hospital, but made sure to leave a note behind that said, "Mom, pay them, please. Bye." Though I had spent the night at the hospital, I felt physically fine, and psychologically, knowing that Nanami was okay, had made my gloom lessen considerably. Proceeding with great care in case Shogun and Yua were lying in wait for me along the way, I hastened back to my base. I'd come back. My emotional state was utterly different from when I'd left here last night. Of course... is the figure the new one? That's important. Yeah. That's like... Is there a month's worth of dust collected on everything here? Is it the older figure or the newer figure? You take the bait too easily, M9. Nanami's gonna be okay even without you freaking out like that. Lol. What? Oh, I wanted to say a word too. Okay, never mind. That kind of thing. But yesterday had been really tough. Anything and everything had been tough. In the morning, there was that weird phone call, an earthquake took place, my hard disk got cleared, I've been forced to witness Ayas's failed suicide attempt, Shogun had emailed me, sent me a severed hand. My hyper mood drained away in an instant. Severed hand. I swallowed jerkily and cast my line of sight at the fridge. Hand was in there. Yesterday, before leaving here, after considering what to do about it with my discombobulated mind, I'd stuck the hand in the fridge for the time being. Logical. If I left it hanging around outside, it might rot and the smell of blood would lie thick. Okay, that's fair, I guess, but... Sci-fi anime and movies often use the premise that people can remain in a state of apparent death for hundreds of years as long as you keep them frozen in storage, but you put it in the fridge, not the freezer. In a word, I'd landed on the same sort of idea. Yesterday, I'd honestly thought that once Anonymous was safe, if her hand was preserved with even a little of its former freshness, maybe they could surgically reattach it. If it weren't Anonymous' hand, whose could it be? Whose hand is O's hand? And how was I supposed to account for the cell phone and the bangle? Unless my eyes were mistaken, those definitely belonged to Nanami. When I called her, it had connected me with the cell phone in the hand's grip. Or else everything, those parts included, was part of the trap Shogun had laid for me. Everything's part of a trap inside of a trap inside of a delusion inside of a trap inside of a delusion inside of a coma inside of another delusion inside of a weirdly incestuous wet dream inside of a trap inside of a trap inside of dating sim inside of an arrogate inside of another delusion inside of him just drawing in crayon on a marker board. When you hear so on freeze over there. Yeah, that's exactly. Was it really possible to so perfectly replicate Nanami's arm? Maybe, to be fair, he didn't go, oh, like that's a birthmark on her arm or something. He went, oh, that's a bracelet. This is her phone. He could have theoretically dropped the bracelet and her phone, I don't know, put the bracelet in her bag with her phone and have left it somewhere. Or somebody could have just knocked her out, taken the bracelet and the phone and walked away. Yeah, it was identified by the things around it, not by, oh, that's my sister's hand. I didn't actually read that today. Maybe I ought to check it one more time. Although I seriously didn't want to. A human hand. Disgusting. Recalling it nearly made me throw up, even if it were Nanami's. Simply because of that, I couldn't let it stay in the fridge for who knew how long. At this rate, I wouldn't be able to chill my Coke either. Think of the important things. For a second, I thought of giving it to the police, but on second thought, they suspected me of being the new-gen perpetrator. Under those circumstances, it'd be suicidal to call 110 and tell them, please take a severed hand from me. True, yeah. What should I do? Maybe I ought to throw it away? But I felt like it'd be bad to chuck it if it were Nanami's arm, hypothetically speaking. For starters, was it okay to throw a human hand in the garbage? No. If you were going to do it, did it belong with burnable garbage? I mean, it's technically burnable. Technically. I scratched my head. Nothing would come of pondering it. For now, I should take a more careful look at the bracelet on the hand was wearing and the cell phone it held, to see whether they were Nanami's or not. I stood in front of the fridge and gripped its handles. I closed my eyes and took 2 or 3 deep breaths. I was tempted to call Rimi and have her examine it in my place, but I soon chased away that temptation. Hey, so you seem to have actual, like, feelings for me, either relationship-wise or friendship-wise? We seem pretty cool. I can't really understand why. I need you to come over to my place, open my fridge, and examine the severed human hand that's in there, because I'm too afraid to do it. I love my friends, dearly. But if they call me up and they're like, hey, there's a severed human hand in my refrigerator, I don't know how it got there. I don't know who it belongs to. And I'm too afraid to look at it. Can you come over and do it? I'd kind of not be sprinting in that direction, fake friend. That's fair. Like, I say that, but like, if I was actually on the phone with my friends and they were clearly sounding upset and like, I'd have a lot of questions, but I'd definitely be there. But I'd have a lot of questions. Check out the severed hand. You're right. You know what? You're right. Rimi might be my ally, but finding a human hand in my fridge would make anyone pull back. If I screwed up, she might grow wary of me and send me to the police. My only option was to do something about it myself. Damn it. I grit my teeth. I took another 2 deep breaths. And my mind made up. I pulled the handle. Those are some clementines. Huh? I didn't spot it anywhere. Gone. Yeah, it's that. The hand that I definitely put in here yesterday. A hand wrapped in aluminum foil. I'd left it on the top level. Also been a month. Yeah, why does he have clementines? His sister brought them over. Way, way earlier. She brought over clementines for both of them to eat. Yet not even a shadow of it remained. Why are they still good? I don't know. It's a really good refrigerator, guys, okay? A really good refrigerator. In the fridge were several plastic bottles of Coke and some rotting clementine. Okay, so he specifies the rotting. Maybe they just grew clementines, or modeled clementines, because whatever. Also, apparently, I just saw like a clip of Robotics Note, and it is like more traditional anime background, or like animated 2D backgrounds instead of like the model 3D. I don't mind this style, but I'm just so much more used to like the 2D backgrounds. Yeah, exactly. It's so weird that it's 3D models. I don't dislike it, but it's weird. It's so uncommon. Disappeared. Why? It had unexpectedly vanished. I crouched and peeked all the way to the back of the fridge, but it still wasn't there. Anyway, I couldn't have overlooked it, given that there wasn't much in here, and it was mostly empty. I put it in here yesterday, didn't I? Yeah, this is seeming... Yeah. Or had I just made myself think that, and in reality I'd left it sitting out? I closed the fridge and looked around anywhere except for at the computer, where the Seraton figure would be. The cardboard box is gone, too. The large cardboard box that the hand had been put in. What had I done with it yesterday? I had a sense that I tossed it into a corner of the room, but... The game should be better. Yeah, I didn't watch the anime, so... The only one of these I'd seen the anime before playing the game was my initial Steins Gate viewing. I had seen that anime before I even knew there were games, and then found the game afterwards, like, ooh, I want to play this. And since then, kind of forgot there were other things in that series, so I'd played the Steins Gate Zero game, and I have not seen that anime. When we play it, after we finish playing it, I'll probably watch it with viewers on the Discord, because I haven't seen the Zero anime. If it's anything like the OG one, it'll be good. And I hear the Robotics Notes animes are good. They're not phenomenal. They're not bad. They're good. And I hear the Chaos animes are abysmal. Bad, 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 bad. Ruin your enjoyment of the game. Don't watch these. So I'm going to watch one jokingly, probably after finishing this, but you know. Specifically, I hear Chaos Child is worse, though I don't hear good things about Chaos Head anime. But I hear Chaos Child is like super bad. Like super bad. But I hear the robotics ones are like, they're fine. They're not a great adaptation. They're not bad. They're just sure. But since I already own the games anyway now, I'm just gonna play the games first. So like that's how I'm gonna do it. But after I finish them, then I'll probably go watch anime, even though I know the Chaos ones are gonna suck. I'm gonna watch them anyway. Maybe? I do plan on streaming the animes to the Discord after I finish the games anyway. But for now, you know, gotta finish the game first. At any rate, my memories of last night weren't very clear. Because yesterday had been more eventful than my brain capacity could handle, not to mention that each event had made a huge impact on me, I had been out of sorts from start to finish. Calm down, cool your head, and try to get organized. Let's think about why the hand that had been here yesterday is gone. He's assuming one very strong thing. Like, literally, nurse comes in and goes, hey, you've been in a coma for a month. Your family was just here last night. They left. Nurse leaves to get a doctor, comes back, repeats the exact same conversation as if it had never happened, and he goes, oh. No, things happen the way I remember them. No, yesterday I was on top of a building. That happened, but it was fine. Don't worry about it. Like, if the nurse was right, clearly these things are going to be different. If the nurse was wrong, he says, I don't know. I started up my word processing software and began writing up a list of the various possibilities that occurred to me. What reasons can I think of for the disappearance of my hand in the fridge? I was mistaken. I left it somewhere else. Yesterday, I myself took it outside and threw it away somewhere. Shogun took it back. In truth, the police searched my room and confiscated it. The mass media broke in and stole it. The mass media is not like a physical mass of media. It can't, the mass media can't go somewhere and do something. The hand didn't even exist in the first place. My base had been unlocked ever since yesterday, so anyone could have entered without much difficulty. In fact, that was precisely why Shogun had been able to leave the hand in my room. Or was it two? I didn't have clear memories of when I left here to go to O-Front. My feeling of, I have to save Nanami, and fear of Shogun, that came when I saw the hand. In any case, a range of emotions spiraled in me, filling me to the brim. I hadn't been cool-headed at all. Maybe I had unconsciously taken the hand with me when I left and had thrown it away in a trash can somewhere. Alternatively, everything about the hand had been a delusion, and in truth, it had never existed to begin with. Also, hey Sor, how's it going? Welcome to Vapperland in the chat. But when I opened my email, yesterday's mail from Shogun was still there. Oh. Was it still dated yesterday? Okay, that leads a lot more credence to... Okay. All the stuff about his present to me and whatnot was written there plain as day. Okay. Besides, Shogun himself had referred to the hand yesterday. I had a real hard time thinking of it as being a delusion of mine. Yeah, can we see the figure, please? Scrolling recent followers. It's never scrolled, but yeah, I'm hiding it at least until it's not a hotspot. I could leave it up there, I just don't want to. It's thankfully an easy just click button on my side. What about the possibility that the police or the media had taken it? They could look at otaku creeps like me with contempt, so the chances of that might be unexpectedly strong. I was scared to go off online after yesterday's events. Even so, I couldn't keep from wanting to see for myself, and I opened my browser. Yeah. So far, none today. So, like, knock on wood, not a single one today so far. And that's with the stream earlier and now, so, like... Is it? I mean... It took us several streams to go through, Lionsgate, right? How many did it take us? I got it saved on my heckin' thing. Lionsgate took us, like, 10? Give or take? We are up to... Okay, let me just maximize that. We are currently up to part 5. This will be part 6 of Chaos Head. The one we're doing now. Steins Gate took us 10, including finishing it. Like the final one was part 10. So I mean, at this rate, if they're the same length, we're a little past halfway. This is going to make you affiliate. The problem is, none of the hotspots stay. They go, they follow, they leave. So like, it's not like you get viewers from it, unfortunately. I began by looking up the main news page at Taboo, plus the news sites I usually frequent, aka 4chan. As expected, there were a bunch of articles lined up about yesterday's bedlam at the pedestrian scramble. Okay, so he was definitely not in a coma for a month. Why did the nurse say it and say it twice? If he definitely hasn't been in a coma for a month, and this is definitely stuff that happened yesterday. Yeah, that's true. Visual novels in general are kind of known to be lengthy. That's just how it is. Call the boss from followers list. Cool, good. I don't want them there, so like, wonderful. Numbers will drop. Yeah, that's fine. I don't want my numbers inflated by bots, and I really don't want my numbers inflated by hate-spewing bots. Really don't want that, so good. Now I'm super suspicious of the nurse. That was super weird. And while we got the hieroglyphics leading into her scene, we got no waviness, and we got nothing leading out of it other than just cutting to another scene. And she said this... That was straight up like a Matrix heckin' deja vu moment. Like, that's weird. As expected, there were a bunch of articles lined up about yesterday's... Oh, I read that. Oh, I should have read the Nucleus article. The airwave stealing ESPer is an Akiba-type feral boy? An ESP show by a young new generation boy reached its curtain call in the worst manner possible. Hearing that a magnitude 5 earthquake had taken place in Shibuya around noon on the 27th, MHK, BTS, and TV Yuhi broadcast special reports, while TV Today and Mount Fuji TV decided to simultaneously provide a live broadcast of his show, starting at around 9 p.m. However, protest calls soon began pouring in. Let down by how he had dodged his promises, approximately 5,000 fans booed for over an hour in the Shibuya Station Plaza, and fights also broke out between them. It resulted in 13 arrests. Oh. The disturbance began with a prank email from Boy N, a Shibuya resident and self-proclaimed Esper. His email, in which he declared he would use clairvoyance to determine the culprit in a brutal series of incidents currently taking place in Shibuya, aka the New Generation Madness, initially garnered skepticism among the broadcast stations he sent it to. However, when the American psychic investigator Yuri Brightman contacted them, stating that he was Boy N's guardian, TV Today and Mount Fuji TV believed him completely. Both TV Today and Mount Fuji TV, the broadcast ratings peaked at over 40%, a shocking number that surpasses their popular year-end programming. While this must come with the caveat that it is ultimately a number derived from a broadcast that aired around the same time as programming related to the earthquake, it cannot be said that the decision to go ahead with the broadcast did not lead to rating success. However, Boy N was not an Esper, or anything of the sort. He riled up viewers by showing signs of being about to jump from the building countless times, but his performance ended there. Dissatisfied reporters charged the roof in an attempt to at least obtain some kind of commentary about the new gen cases, but that too misfired. It is said that the boy collapsed on the roof holding a cosplay costume. According to Professor, or something, according to Professor. Oh, never mind. From a famous Hollywood movie, as well as a Moe anime figurine. According to Professor Hashiba Yoshiru of Akemasa University, an expert in otaku culture. An expert. You see a professor of otaku? Where do you teach otaku? Well, Akemasa University, apparently. Who? Okay. There are an increasing number of youths who have heroic dreams without a thought for the trouble they might cause for those around them. Influenced by anime and games, he must have lost the ability to distinguish between fantasy and reality, and began to actually put his dreams into action. He needs psychological care. He really is just the thing that adults thought playing too much video games would do to a person. He really is just that, right? It's absolutely what all the adults were like. Kids play too many video games. They're gonna lose the ability to distinguish between fiction and reality. It's him. It's him. Whatever else, this was a case of a most peculiar false alarm. I like how you can kind of see where they scrubbed away the original background to translate over it, and you can kind of see a little bit of it over there. You can see the little outline around it. Posted at 7:31, Zako. Related articles: U.S. TV station UBS interviews Yuri Brightman. 1,000+ calls flood in with questions for Psychic Boy. Did the boy's body give off light? Mysterious eyewitness testimony contradicts TV footage. Japan's bogus Psychic Boy hits the top of YouTube ratings. Shibuya earthquake, 188 fatalities, 367 wounded. Wow. I love how this is down here and it's like, ha, look at this silly boy. It's so much higher. Oh, yeah, no, it looks really good. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't actually be surprised if some of this was already English. And maybe this was, and it's meant to just simulate the screen being a little older CRT monitor. I don't know. Yeah, that patch clearly. Text from text box. Oh, absolutely, yeah. I hadn't emailed the media. I'd never seen Yuri Brightman's TV show, and naturally, I knew not a thing about him. What could it all mean? Everything had been arranged by Shogun after all. What for? Do not use drugs! Exclamation point, exclamation point. What news site do you go to, sir? Sir, what news site are you on? He talked about a quest or something. What was to be gained by pushing me to get a D-sword, to the point of making the media feature me in a live broadcast? Is it where news is found? Yeah, right? I didn't understand what Shogun wanted to do. He'd even let Nanami go with her life. Airwave stealing Esper is an Akiba type feral boy. I just love that. I followed the links to read all kinds of articles, but none of them touch on Shogun. ESP show by a young new generation boy reaches current call in the worst possible, hearing the magnitude 5 earthquake take place in Shib. The 27th, MKH, BTS, TVU, he. Special reports, however, protest calls to be pouring. This approximately 500 fans. It's about broke out. There had been almost no time gap between when I barreled at Shogun and the mass media came rushing in. Even if Shogun had used that time to flee, he would without doubt have been spotted by the media. It was still more inconceivable for someone in a wheelchair, that is, Shogun, who shouldn't have been able to use his legs freely, to escape the scene after such a short period of time. Maybe the wheelchair's a distraction. You think they can't get up and run, but like, they're super athletic. Yeah. It is the new figure. We finally see it. Also, just 1 second. That's true. He got physically pushed, and maybe I'm remembering the exact wording of it wrong, but he was like, there's someone else here, basically. Like, there was somebody else who was, like, standing and, like, there. Not Shogun. But then he wasn't alone and they weren't in a wheelchair. And right now, shockingly, my biggest question is absolutely what was up with the nurse? We saw no like like to end the scene or something. Not only did she loop her actions, she lied to him, and the thermometer vanished. At the start of the scene, she hands him a thermometer, goes, take your temperature, puts it under his arm. Talk, you were in a coma, your family was just here, they left at 6 a.m. She leaves, gets the doctor, comes back, hands him a thermometer, there's none under his arm, he puts it there again, goes, wow, that's super weird. Oh yeah, the hospital's clearly connected with a spooky government organization, that's true, because they were handing out mental health assessments made by that organization. Yeah, now, oddly enough, my biggest questions are straight at, like, the hospital and nurse. Furthermore, I took a look around at Chan. After I finished looking at all the porn, I decided to look at the news. As I predicted, things were going wild in there. They repeated my real name over and over. Oh, this will be something. Society! The airwave stealing Esper, I always keep saying Esper, is an Akiba-type feral boy. It's me, Anonymous. Wasn't that Nishijo dude's uniform from Sumai? Hey, anyone in this thread a Sumai student? Boy N, too stupid, lol. Die, you ass, lol. Chill out, Nishijo, for real. Otaku are gonna get bashed again because of you. I found out what figure he was holding. Sierra from Burachu. Lol, so creepy. Otaku freaks are crying over this, lol. That Nishijo guy should have just shut himself up instead of getting on TV or whatever. Sierra, Nishijo, you dummy. I'm gonna send you flying with my awakening rocket body blow, etc. They are closer than they think they are, is the worst part. They think they're mocking him, but they're not really off by a lot. It's like, yeah, it really would be weird if somebody heard their sexy anime girl figures talking to them and telling them what to do. Yeah. 79. Oh, damn it. Can I go back up? I can't. Well, I wanted to see what 79 instead. I forgot what it was. Already done. One of his classmates from last year came out and exposed all his personal information. Oh, it was the Does Anybody Go to Sume? So depressing. They were all saying whatever the hell they wanted. That's how the internet works. Specifically 4chan. Like, that's how the internet at large works. But, like, go on 4chan. And you're like, wow, they're really just saying whatever they want. Yes. Yes, they are. And you go there, which means you do it too. Taunting me without any idea of how it felt. Sir, I am 100% positive you have picked random targets on the internet and taunted them no idea how they felt, nor any care. So like, maybe you deserve it. I don't know. I don't think he's done it on camera, but like, let's be honest, he's done it. That channel was scary when it turned against you. Shogun was to blame for this as well. Yes, Shogun manipulates 4chan specifically to make them hate you. Why? I don't know, but to be fair, of all his plans, this is pretty effective. Clearly digging at him. Is Nanami actually okay since the only person who affirmed her living status was the nurse? Yes. Yeah. Oh, he absolutely would white knight anybody talking bad about either the character or the anime. 100% likely. Yes, you're right. He would totally do that. And that really does bring up the question of what happened to the hand. When he went to the fridge and the hand wasn't there, I was under the assumption he'd been in a coma for a month. If that's not the case, what really did happen to it? I feel like the overall question is really going to be how much of this really has been a delusion. That aside, I thought Underground News that they couldn't show on television would get posted on an 8chan, but I didn't spot anything of the sort. Nothing was going around about how there had been one more person on the roof at O-Front besides me, almost as though the person called Shogun hadn't been there from the start. Maybe the Shogun who appeared there had been no more than a phantom of the real Shogun. Even if his existence were certain, it would also be possible that the Shogun who'd been at O-Front was a delusion I'd created. It is. It's you literally hallucinated the entirety of Shibuya being empty. But it's okay. Yeah.
僕はやっぱり
I
病気なのかも。
might be sick in the head after all. Finally, he realizes that his sister is not actively out to get him and a terrible human being, and he goes, he might be sick in the head after all. So was the one there on the roof? Maybe. We don't know much about Suwa except young cop looking into things. So, I don't know. I still love that like some of these are clearly like 2D images and some of them are just like we took a picture of an android and then you have an actual 3D modeled figure. Like it's jarring and I'd love it, legitimately. Only things that should have been impossible, realistically speaking, kept happening to me. It was like a game. A world where Nanami had died and a world where she was alive. The two of them stood side by side and I had the option to pick either one. Similar to the decision points in an eroge, the future branched infinitely. Not how I'd put it, but also he was MIA that night. Yeah, true. The difference between me and ordinary people was that I had delusions of the choice that led to an unhappy outcome and could simulate the event to come. It's called having an imagination. You just crank your imagination up to like 57.5%. Not percent, 57.5 on a scale of 1 to 10. Such as the events when Nanami died, or when Ayase jumped to death, or when I fell from the roof of O-Front and died. In short, the unhappiness that visited me over and over, as though someone had planned it out, might in fact have been a mental trap I'd laid for myself. In the midst of a boring and unchanging everyday life, I wished to emigrate to a world as stimulating as a game, and I unconsciously showed it to myself in the form of delusions. Impossible. I didn't possess any such desire. At least, I'd say an instant no thanks to any simulation that would scare or sadden me. Really, just how over-imaginative can I get? You think that one person, with the help of a high school girl, one person confined to a wheelchair with the help of a high school girl, has conspired and mind-controlled the entirety of the population of Shibuya against you. You think everything is a layer upon a layer upon a layer of people trying to get to you for some reason. I'd say you could be fairly over-imaginative. Just little bit over-imaginative. Not a delusion at all. Even all the things I was thinking of now were ultimately no more than idiotic, childish delusions. I sighed and leaned against my chair's backrest, looking distractedly up at the ceiling. Reality was indeterminate. Everything began to appear like a lie. The world called I was so hollow. Okay. Yes. Mm-hmm. I mean, they just summed up the entire plot right there. That's it. Like, net, I get it. I understand everything now. Oh, a bizarre female corpse. Oh, sorry, hold on. Let me get newscaster voice. A bizarre female corpse was discovered by Shibuya River at 8 p.m. today. The victim is 27-year-old Tokachi Ayama of the Edogawa district, and the cause of death appears to be suffocation via blockage of the throat. According to the police investigation, the muscles of the victim's right hand had been torn off, exposing her bones, and human flesh had been found among the contents of her stomach. This is seen as being indicative of the victim having bitten and devoured her own hand. Additionally, her ankles were bound with a cord. The police are considering both the possibilities of suicide and homicide. That's something. That's something. Yeah, that does have Saw vibes to it, doesn't it? Alright, hold on. Saw came out before this game, right? Saw movie release date. Not a new one. Yeah, 2004 was the first Saw movie, so could definitely be inspired by bits of it. For sure. Ever since the city suffered through a magnitude 5 earthquake, the air in Shibuya had turned savage. So we had group diving, pregnant man, staking, vampire house, brainless, tasty hand. Yeah. Shibuya's public order was visibly worsening, and it didn't end merely with brawls between young people. The situation included an explosive surge in theft. Tasty hand. The mass media frequently use the words new generation to fan the flames of people's sense of danger and enclosure. So, like, I like how they're entertaining the idea that it could be a suicide. Like, yes, if I thought life was too terrible and I had to end it, and I thought there was no other way to do it, the way I'd go about it is I'd go to a public place, bind my feet together, eat everything off of my own hand, question mark, question mark, question mark, die. That's definitely, like, logical. It's called Boob Gen there. Oh yeah, no, it's 4chan. Of course they would do something like that. I keep calling it 4chan because that's the American version of it, even though he's clearly talking about 2chan, which is the Japanese version of it. That was the original one, and the American one's based off. Whatever. Mass media frequently use the words new generation to fan the flames of people's sense of danger and enclosure, which in response led to phenomena like certain stories suddenly calling off business. Additionally, the demonstrators who had been marching under the banner of anti-New Gen once per week suddenly caused a riot and rushed the Shibuya Police Department. Anti-New Gen? We've seen that out and about, but like, we saw them once just as a thing of like, they were protesting, but like, what are you protesting? Like, they're murders, they're bad, people agree with that. The cops are trying to find the killers. Cool. Like, what's to protest? The new types, clearly, obviously. Over 100 arrests resulted from their clash with the police force. Maybe they're just mad nothing's being done that they can tell. Like, clearly the police are doing something, but maybe they're just mad it hasn't been, like, solved yet? Excuse me, I don't know. As had happened during the commotion about the Esper boy, several thousand rubberneckers gathered to enjoy the festival. The difference in mood between those who were simply visiting Shibuya and those who lived there grew striking. The former anticipated greater idiocy and chaos. The latter lamented Shibuya's shift towards lawlessness and advocated giving police greater freedom to act. The 6th New Gen incident occurred as though to mock this chain of disturbances. Naturally, the culprit remained at large. Obviously. Nothing's changed. Yeah, that's true. The way he made it sound is a lot of the stuff happened between 5 and 6, of like the riots and the fights and whatnot. And now the 6 happened to be like, haha, screw you, I'm still out here. Still, like, I guess I can see that. Like, 5 separate, really disturbing incidents have happened, and the killer's still out there. Do something. A week had passed since the day of the earthquake. I'd been suspended from school all the while. Even if they hadn't suspended me, I wouldn't have been emotionally equipped to go to school. Why did they suspend him? Another Nugen incident occurred the day after the earthquake. Like the time when Dr. Tashahina was killed, its content made it clear that it was a kind of message aimed at me. A woman who had devoured her own right hand. That secretly signified Nanami's severed right hand, no doubt about it. The thing about Nanami had just been Shogun fishing me, but I went cold when I entertained the thought that maybe she'd really been the one to die. And I'd become famous in Shibuya in the worst sense of the word, which made me more afraid than ever before to venture out swords. Is that because of the hospitalization? Maybe, yeah. If there were a hole, I wanted to crawl inside. There were days when I went without eating, because even going shopping at convenience stores was agonizing. It's only agonizing when it's the holiday season and all you can hear is just, "All I want for Christmas is you," over and over again. I couldn't hold my head up and walked around outside. I constantly had the feeling that someone was laughing at me. It's the crows. Man, it's almost that time of the year. But first Halloween. Other people's gazes scared me. I don't want to meet anyone. People who seemed like they were from the media frequently dropped by, but I ignored all of them. I hadn't contacted my parents or spoken to Nanami. That's not good. Please let us, the player, know if she's alive. Our unreliable narrator has met an unreliable nurse who's been the only person to tell our unreliable narrator unreliably that she's alive. So, I don't rely, I can't trust any of you. I held back on playing ESO as well. But what did you do? Literally all you do is eat and play ESO. There wouldn't be anything worse than if it leaked out that I was Neidhart. Why would that be? Oh yeah, because he's got a god complex with his character. 1 week. Was this brief period of time too long or too short for things to cool down? They say that rumors last 75 days, but that's a proverb from the past. Oh yeah, no, rumors last like 75 seconds now. That's fair, yeah. Lately, fads have been amazingly fast to change. The catchwords of the moment will have been abandoned in a year. Some of the coined words that everyone uses in their net speak die out in a matter of months. On a daily basis, TV shows seek out heroes and idols and villains, milk them dry, and throw them away. This is true of even the new gen cases. Now that 6 had occurred, people on 8chan had pretty much stopped discussing the first one. Everything disappeared from people's memories in the blink of an eye. That's why I thought about how nice it'd be if, like these sorts of topics, the stir about me died down within a week. Wishful thinking, but I couldn't help wishing it. My head and stomach ached. I sat down on my usual bench and calmed my heart. Surely Sierra Tan would say nothing, because she's a fictional character in a plastic statue. If it hurts that bad, you can quit school already. I started to think just a little that maybe I should. I'd heard that worsening of public order had led to an increase in Shibuya students who voluntarily left school. I thought for a while now that I didn't care much about not being able to graduate. As a matter of fact, I might as well leave school right now. Even so, I was going to school, despite shouldering a risk of encountering Yua. I finished drinking the Coke I'd brought from a vending machine along the way, and got up from the bench. Stop fooling yourself. I didn't want to go to school, but I didn't want to quit either. Because if I quit school, I wouldn't be able to see Remy. Now, because we were classmates, we would automatically meet as long as I went to school. But if that connection went away, yeah, she hasn't shown up in this past week, being like, "Hey, you okay? Knock knock. All well in there?" Nothing. Nothing. We haven't heard from her since before the earthquake, at all. Of course, we could make phone calls or go meet face to face. Wait. No, because right after the earthquake, he ended up going to the school where he didn't see her. Then he ended up going to the building and the whole hand shenanigans. Yeah, we haven't seen from her since before the earthquake, right? Or the phone call before the earthquake that made his head really hurt and feel like it was melting. And yeah. Of course, we could make phone calls or go meet face to face. Those things required proactive behavior. They certainly wouldn't happen automatically. I definitely couldn't behave proactively. Yeah, that's fair. In fact, I hadn't seen Remy for a while now. I'll be there for you, even though Remy had promised me so. I hadn't had any contact from her for over 10 days. Yeah, last time we heard from was after this jumped, right? I don't think we heard from her. We, the player, saw her at the hospital after that. He, the character, hasn't heard from her since before that, but you're right. She was at the hospital. We saw her there, we, the player. But from his point of view, it's been well over a week. When I imagined that maybe she'd seen my disgrace on TV and had fallen out of her good graces, it made me horribly frightened and sad and lonely. No one, not even Nanami, came to see me. I was slandered in massive online threats. I cowered in fear of Shogun and Yua's shadows. Though I said I didn't want to meet with anyone, that solitude was agonizing. Damn it, if it wasn't for the fact that we had a scene of him, like, waking up in the middle of the night and, like, typing online as Shogun, I'd say there's a non-zero chance of Yua acting the part of Shogun. If it's not him and it's not a multiple personality, but she also seems to actually be trying to help him. I don't know. I don't really know where Yua stands. She seems to know these things are happening and kind of being like, hey, we should get you some help. But at the same time, like, we keep getting flashes of her, like, sending emails, right, as he gets, like, Shogun emails and stuff like that, and she easily could have sent those messages. She knew what computer he went to in the heckin' net cafe. She easily could have snuck into that room right after he left and, like, tack. But apparently he was in the room at the time, which makes it harder to... It wasn't just like, oh, I had just left, he was there. So I don't know. It still doesn't quite hold water, but... just thinking out loud, I guess. I wanted Remy to come take a look at me. I wanted her to say, it must have been very hard for you, and hold me gently. When you get down to it, I was letting her spoil me. But it was her fault. Of course, nothing could be your own fault. Remy was the one who had taught me about three-dimensional warmth. After I'd known that warmth once, it made me want to reach for it again and again. It's her fault you're addicted to hugs. That's a very otaku thing to say, yes. Shogun could have all been a lie. True. It could be, like... Everyone's unreliable. I don't know what is true, what's false, what's real, what's not. I could no longer find such peace in the second dimension or in delusions. I couldn't stand it just by immersing myself in daydreams. I want to see Remy. Loves me forever and ever, clearly. I didn't see any tremendous transformations when I passed through the school gates. Rather, no one noticed I was there. Was the flower bed there? We'll never know. Once I entered the school building and climbed the stairs, an unfamiliar girl passed me saying, "Ah," and looked at me with faint sympathy in her eyes. When I reached the hallway with my class for a minute, several of the windows there were broken. I sensed whispered and frank gazes from all around me. At that point, I had a bad premonition. My wishful thinking was on the verge of being ground to pieces. Yet all I wanted to do was meet Remy, and so I opened the classroom door. The silence lasted for about 10 seconds. Everyone was watching me, and all of them had gone rigid. Looking down, I walked through the quiet classroom until I got to my seat. Taking that as his cue, a thuggish guy in the last row, I didn't know his name, became the first to raise his voice. "Oi, Nishicho, how about showing us your superpowers?" Nothing yet, correct. She's done nothing but get injured, including seemingly injuring herself at a time that would draw attention away from Takumi when he didn't want attention on him. So for sure connected somehow, but we have no idea how. That single sentence set the classroom stopped time back in motion. Don't you feel sorry for him saying that? But dude, doesn't he have Yuri's acknowledgement? Yeah, I saw it on TV. He's way awesome, that fake psychic. Nishicho's gotta be a faker too, right? He was just cuddling a big doll and a really little one. Give it a rest, I'm telling you. Nishicho ain't well, leave him be. He's supposed to be able to fly, and what was the other thing? X-ray vision. What'll I do if he uses it on me? He'll see right through my clothes. I mean, okay, if he's got X-ray vision, he'll see right through your clothes to your bones. directly through your skin and muscle, too. Because Nishijo's a perp. Well, to be fair, some of what they're saying is true. Sure, he can't fly, he doesn't have X-ray vision, clearly there's rumors being made up, but he is perv. Crap, he looked this way. He'll turn to stone if you don't look away. Is it the skeletons? Maybe. I misread that as Data at first, and I was like, I don't remember that being a Star Trek episode. But no, I gotcha. No worries. After all, he's actually just an otaku freak. They're not wrong. He's said it himself. Secret Star Trek lore. No, lore is evil Data. If you've never seen Star Trek The Next Generation, Data's my favorite character. I love him. He's great. He does have an evil counterpart that was given emotions and has used them for evil, and he has a goatee, and his name is Lore, and I'm not making this up. Data and Lore. Data's the logical, factual one. Lore uses his emotions and just ends up being evil and has a goatee. And he dropped on the bot the other night, and I didn't nab him, and I don't know why. There's a lot of great characters in The Next Generation. I liked Data a lot, but if anybody was like, oh, I loved Riker, anyone, there's no wrong answer, except... damn it, I remember the actor's name. What was the character's name? The actor's Will Wheaton, and I have nothing against Will Wheaton, but the character he played was just kind of like a, oh, okay. Wesley Crusher. If somebody says Wesley Crusher is their favorite character, I'm sorry, you're wrong. Literally anyone else is great. Oh, Q is fantastic. Q, I've started watching Deep Space Nine, and Q shows up there once or twice, and I'm digging that. Everyone is great. But if somebody says the favorite character is Wesley, I'm sorry. The only reason I would the only reason I could see why somebody would be like, Wesley's my favorite character is if you watched it when you were like the age of that character growing up and like sympathized with them. I'd get that. As somebody not child age watching it, nah, it's okay. But it's fine. He gets ascended into a ray of light and goes on to be off the show? That was a weird episode. He straight up ascended. That happened. That was an episode. The Next Generation is a great show. The Next Generation is a weird show. But it's great. I love it. Or, oh, no. The other thing somebody could say, and they could be lying. They could say, Riker's their favorite character, but only Riker in Season 1. Season 1 Riker is not as good as any other season Riker. He's got to have the beard. He's got to sit backwards on chairs. It's important. The situation I feared more than any other. The delinquent's honing in on me as a target. Everybody to him is a delinquent. No one had forgotten the disturbance I'd caused in just a week. Right now, I was the punchline representing all of Japan. Well, see, I think the reason they didn't forget, and it just ended up boiling and spreading more rumors, is because he wasn't there. I honestly think, like, if he showed up every day of that week, by now it would have been like, oh, we're done with this, whatever, it's done. But since they had a week to be like, where did he go? Oh, a rumor. People eat hamburgers are delinquent. Yeah, exactly, right? Such delinquents. A boy had passed out, cradling a figure after making a big deal about having special paranormal powers. It wouldn't help if I asserted that I'd never claimed to have ESP. In truth, it no longer mattered what I did. Excuse me. The story known as The Facts had spread throughout Japan, and however many 100,000 people had recognized it as fact. No one could take it back. Not anyone. Not me, not TV stations, not Shogun. It was an all too embarrassing self-proclaimed Esper. I was an all too repulsive otaku boy. Again, the second part of it is pretty accurate, though. There wasn't a single person who would look upon me favorably. I, who so hated TV programs that made a mockery of otaku, had tainted otaku culture like this. I couldn't use ESP or anything of the sort. Oh, thanks. I couldn't fly, I didn't have X-ray vision, nor telekinesis. I hadn't been able to get my hands on a D-sword either. I was a piece of crap incapable of rescuing my little sister with my own two hands. I was an otaku, plain and simple, with no skills aside from my knowledge of anime and games. There was no helping it. Trying to keep from having a mental breakdown, I look around for deliverance for Remy. Then my eyes met Nishimi-kun's. Right away, he... Ooh. He averted his eyes. Well, yeah. If he acted friendly with the likes of me, even Misumi-kun would be shunned by the rest of the class. Yeah, that's right. It's only natural. In any case, a gross otaku like me and a pretty boy like him, we lived in different worlds. It was strange enough that we'd gotten along until now. I mean, is it though? He clearly associated with a guy who was not helping him get ladies. If his whole entire goal was sleep with female classmates, which it did seem to be fair, talking with the gross otaku guy before this happened didn't help him with that in any way, and he clearly went out of his way to do that. So, like, I'm a little surprised. I'm not saying he deeply cared for him or anything, but, like, he clearly wanted to be friends enough to seek him out, even though it didn't further his goal of just wants to sleep with all the classmates. Or, given that he has a girlfriend, just wants to constantly cheat on his girlfriend. But maybe this is just too far? I don't know. Feeling the threat of crying start to come on, I made my line of sight circle around. As though to cling to her, I searched for Rimi's form. But she wasn't there. Rimi wasn't there. Why? Was she taking the day off? At the time like this? Then I'd lost my only method of coming in contact with Rimi. If she never came to the classroom again, I'd probably never be reunited with her for the rest of my life. I had that feeling. Don't you have her cell phone number or something? But, I know he's only got like 3 numbers in his phone. Wasn't one of them Rimi? Does Rimi even exist now? Yeah, that's a good question. It had been the same when she first appeared. One day, out of the blue, Rimi had been in this class. And now, just as suddenly, she was gone. See, I wish I remembered the exact detail and order of things. Did she show up after the first time he got that phone call with the tone? Like, I remember the things that happened, but she showed up after that? Like, shortly after that? Because now that he's heard the tone again, she seems to be gone. Yeah. At 2 numbers in front of the 3. Yeah, exactly. No, he couldn't possibly use a cell phone. I'm not sure either. Like, it's long enough ago that I was like, I remember the events, but not the exact order of them. Maybe she's gotten caught in the earthquake and died. Well, if that were the case, I'm sure it's during the week you just didn't show up. They would have said something. Shame you weren't here. Frantically tried to shake away such a negative thought, but I couldn't do it. My mood sank lower and lower. Leaden illusions controlled my heart. Had a girl called Shikihata Rimi ever really existed in the first place? That's what we're asking. Maybe, like Sierra-tan, she was nothing more than a personality I'd created in my head. The only thing that I don't think she was straight created by him, simply because she has interacted with other people. Even only in small ways, and not much, and mostly just ladies' man over here. Pretty much exclusively him. Have we seen her interact with any other person? She's interacted with him, she's commented on other people, but hasn't actually gone up to them and spoken words. When I thought about it that way, a whole bunch of dots began to connect. Rimi always appeared to save me, as if by magic, when I most needed her. Rimi always treated me gently, despite me being a filthy otaku. Did I think a 3D girl so convenient to me and so ideal for me truly existed? You did. I no longer had any reason to come to school. My sole reason had disappeared. We got some color choices. What do we pick here? I'm going to take a sip of my drink, which is not a cola, but it is a Dr. Pepper. Oh, she absolutely seems to just teleport behind him when needed. And multiple times they drew attention to there being no one around, and then she was there. Like, at least once. Maybe not multiple times, but at least once in the courtyard, he had made sure no one was around, and she was there. So, like, all the door opening ones, we could just be like, well, he was too engrossed in his game, he had noise-canceling headphones, I don't know, whatever. But that one, there's no logical reason she could have been behind him. At all. So, yeah. The other ones were still weird, don't get me wrong. But you could logic out some way it could theoretically happen, I guess. Actually, the fact that she clearly opened the door one time only made the other ones seem weirder. I was alone after all. I'd been alone from the start. I wept. Internally, I wept. I fought my hardest to keep from shedding real tears. It was the only semblance of pride I had left. Though, it was a tiny and worthless pride. It was all I could do to sit at my desk, head hanging, gritting my teeth. Even if I wasn't listening, my classmates' voices entered my ears as they talked. Did no mouth animations? Yes, true. Yeah. Remy is beyond suspicious. And it's not, is something up with her? It's more, what's up? Same with the nurse now. I didn't really question the nurse before now. Now it's just like, not many questions. Wanted to run away, but I was petrified by the thought that if I moved around foolishly, they'd take it as a reason to pick a fight with me. They should die. Every one of them. It's not like I've got anything left to lose, so how about I end my life as it pleases me? For example, throwing my arms around one of the girls in the class while blurting the sort of lewd lines one might hear in an eroge. Those would be the last actions he'd ever take. He would die. That's true. Absolutely. And if possible, jumping straight into some non-con play right there. In the morning classroom with everyone's eyes upon us. You would die, huh? And you deserve it. Yeah. Becoming halfway defiant, I surveyed the classroom. Ramen, you have the... Your choices are an art form that I truly don't understand. Who'd make a good target? If I was going to do it, might as well pick a cutie. Someone who didn't seem likely to resist much. They're going to beat him to death, and again, he will deserve it. These delinquent harpies were out of the question. They wore too much makeup for being in high school and weren't at all attractive. I still don't understand what his criteria for delinquent is, but like, wearing makeup apparently, is he really one of those guys? See you around 7. Thanks for hopping by. Hope you enjoyed this. Hope you enjoyed what is Protag thinking? Why is he this way? The game. Oh yeah, the transfer student might work out well. Oh, come on. She's one of the few people around here who's actively tried to do things nice to you. She looked docile, and she gave off a lowly aura that just kinda made you want to bully her. And if I remembered right, she was the clumsy type. That part of her was pretty moe, too. In a certain sense, it put her rather close to 2D characters. She might be good. Well, glad it's a warbly delusion. Sad it's gonna have to be read by me. I slowly rose from my seat. The atmosphere around me changed. Those who had been taunting me before retreated a little upon seeing me suddenly move into action. You guys are all talk in the end. But I'm different, man. I pull through when things get down to the crutch. No, there's actually been no more false statement about you other than maybe Takumi is a good person. I can't think of a more false statement than Takumi pulls through when things get down to the crunch. That is so false. How can I prove that to you now? I wordlessly headed to the transfer student's desk. Is she even there? Oh, yes. She sat shrunken in her chair, facing down. She looked up dubiously when she noticed me. For some reason, she already looked as if she were going to cry. Yeah, mistakes have been made. I abruptly grabbed her slim upper arm. This is not the music I expected. I pulled her towards me. She struggled weakly. Confused, or perhaps uncertain of what to do, she looked back and forth between me and those around us. Another rare glimpse of Takumi. Very rare. Shockingly, I think the clearest glimpse we've gotten of him. And that is honestly the face I imagine him making most of the time. Just in general. I forcibly embraced her from behind. As she was remarkably thin as she looked, enough to make me think that she'd break straight away if I treated her violently. She was trembling like a chihuahua. But she smelled nice. She was about a head shorter than me. I rubbed my face against her head. I buried my nose in her soft hair and sniffed its scent. Just come in the nuts. Hard. She seemed too frightened to speak, although I'd never actually seen her talk before, come to think of it. She talked to you! The first day she passed by, she totally talked to you! She absolutely did. Sorry, hold on, I got something in my eye. There we go. But I guess she's never spoken. Sure. She twisted her body in an attempt to wriggle out of my grasp, but the strength she put into it was nothing to write home about. You can already tell it's an illusion besides everything else because he's stronger than someone. So, yeah. Even I, who normally performed no physical activity and had zero muscular bulk, was able to easily suppress her. The juvies around us had wow, he really thinks everyone is just a criminal. Frozen in place, unmoving, as if taken aback by my unconventional behavior. And it's more than unconventional. As the transfer student shook her head, I licked her earlobe. See, now we're just going into JoJo. Her delicate body jolted. What a great reaction. I was getting more and more... I was ready to go wherever my... without thinking of the consequences. First, some dirty talk. I'd make the timid transfer student use obscene words. Heh.
チンスコって言え。
Okay. 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 The situation is awful. But I love that his concept of dirty talk is cock-a-doodle-doo. Every other part of this is awful, and I hate it. But that's okay. Say cock-a-doodle-doo. I wonder if that was supposed to, like, translated as, like, something close enough that's, like, no closer thing in English, and it's something actually, like, really super lewd or something, and they were just like, how do we translate this? Cock-a-doodle-doo, whatever. Her face instantly went red, tears welled in her eyes, and she shook her head more frantically than before, or it's just his delusion. He wants that to be something that's super lewd, so she treats it as super lewd.
レマンコって言え。
Say, pussycat.
クリトキリギリスって言え。
Say, sperm whale. Right. Her gestures of unwillingness incited me to further sadism. Public assault was pretty much the only choice left here. Is it really? I'd reenact my favorite H scenes from the eroge That One. I slowly slid my hands down. Say D sort. Oh, wait. Can we, please? Right after we were like, "Ah, he's almost getting better." No. Her body quivered. The energy with which she resisted was diminishing. It's so mortifying, but I'm feeling it, or something like that. Yeah, she had a cute face, but wow. We spoke too soon, yeah. Unable to hold back the laughter rising in me, I broke into a grin and thrust my hand into her skirt. Okay. I'm at least, yeah, bad. Cut off before things got way too far. I immersed myself in such delusions. Why? While sitting in my seat, face lowered. You could have any delusions, and you picked that. You could have had the delusion of, people treat me better. People aren't making jokes about me. A normal day at school. Firmly on the side of Darth Spider. Yeah. And I have to agree. Not even kinda, just hard agree. Even now, the transfer student was writhing indecorously on my... was writhing in my head. Okay. Lovely moans spilling from her mouth. Out of this world. My life were going to end anyway. I'd like to finish things off by experiencing something that enjoyable. Okay. Takumi. If your life is truly so awful, it has to end. But you also have some money around. And you just wanted to have some sort of sexual contact with a 3D person. There are prostitutes out there you can pay to consensually have sexual contact with. It's not rape. You're not assaulting anyone. It is technically illegal, but compared to what you were daydreaming of, it is so much of a better plan. Like, so much of a better plan. We know you have a good amount of money stashed away from RMT selling things online from your MMO. There's so many better options for you. If that is your end goal, you're like, I'm over, but I just want to do a dirty thing before I go. Like, you got so many better options that don't hurt people. Just saying. But Takumi doesn't listen to reason. The more I thought about it, the more I felt driven by the urge to do it. Please don't. Maybe the second I acted so recklessly, the world would reset itself, and my simulation of the choice that leads to an unhappy outcome would come to an end. And I'd return to the previous world. Or maybe you'd ruin somebody's life, and then your own too. Double whammy. Would be wilder than anything he dreamed up to. Yeah. Remy would be there, just like she was supposed to be. Misumi-kun would come to chat with me in his friendly way. Everyone would totally forget how I had shamed myself. No one would mock me. I ought to try it. My mind went dazed. Maybe I had a small fever. Maybe you had the biggest fever any human being's ever had. The kind of fever you get during growth spurts? Is that a thing? Like, I hit my growth spurt fairly early. I went from, like, you know, childhood height to, like, 6 feet tall in the span of middle school. I remember, like, bones aching. I definitely remember, like, aches in the bones. I had fevers, though? Or delusion-induced fever, not such a phrase existed. Apparently you can have delusion-induced Kakumi. Yeah. It's a wives' tale thing. Okay. Whatever. I ought to try it. You ought not. Even if I couldn't go back to the previous world, they'd only think I was crazy. No, they probably already thought so. I had nothing left to lose, so I didn't care either way. A week ago, when I heard from the nurse that Nanami was alive, I'd thought, because Nanami was alive, I didn't care about anything else. Yeah, that turned quick. Super quick. I didn't give a damn about my life. I wouldn't mind if they treated me like an eyeball and carted me out of the hospital. Yeah, he did say that, didn't he? Just a week ago. It'd be nice if we were the same hospital as Ayase. Where was Ayase hospitalized anyway? The jail-esque hospital she'd been admitted to in the past? Even that would be fine. It'd be somewhere preferable to this school without Remy. I lost the ability to suppress my magma-like urges. I slowly... Oh, man. If this happens, I hope everyone in this class beats him to death. Right here. I couldn't prevent laughter from swelling in me. Everyone in the class regarded me with the strained expressions. Don't look. There's no value in looking at someone like me. If you mean value, suddenly, you have it, I heard. A girl's voice. You have lots and lots of value. I disagree strongly, but if it will get him to stop what he's doing, cool. Cool. On top of that, such an anime voice. You were the one who saved the girl who tried to jump off and kill herself. So you have lots of value. Who the heck was talking to me? I looked around the classroom one more time. Everyone had gone petrified, their mouths closed in response to my suspicious behavior. Good. I couldn't spot anyone who seemed to be speaking. For starters, this voice gave me a weird sensation, like it was resonating directly inside my head. An oral hallucination? It's also weird that he doesn't recognize the voice. That's weird. He's heard it so many countless times. It's very weird he doesn't recognize it. Right, I created a new delusionary girl. Not a hallucination. Like, that's still Seraton, right? Like, I'm not crazy in hearing it as her voice when it's not. And I'm not a delusion either. What just happened? Sarah's lower pitch. Oh, then I'm crazy. Then he's even crazier than I thought he was. Damn. Had she read my mind? No, it must be imaginary. Or I just assume any voice that isn't coming from a person around him. It's just like, it's Seraton. Kozupi is over here. I'm worried. Yeah. What do you mean, Kozupi? Where is here? Who are you? Oh, he said that out loud. When I shouted, my classmates scooted away from me as though fleeing. It's totally wrong to say you don't have any value, Nishijo-kun. The voice didn't answer my questions. It continued talking using peculiar intonation. In fact, everyone in the class who says mean things about you, they're worthless. Oh, now it's just feeding. Yeah. It's though fleeing. Yeah, they should. I went cold. I had goosebumps. This is what she said, in a very bright and cheerful tone. I think it'd be okay, even if you killed them. Stop it already. Hunched over in my seat. Oh, he sat back down at least. I held my head. The world didn't reset itself. I didn't return to the parallel world where Remy was. Whatever the case, it seemed like I had gone completely crazy. It really does seem that way, doesn't it? It really does seem that way. Yes. Oh, man. Yes. But, like, we also know that there are outside influences to this. Like, on a purely just inside his head point of view, he's lost it. He's lost all of it. He's lost any semblance of having it. But we also know that there are outside influences here, and how much of those outside influences are influencing him, and in what ways, we're not really sure of. Yeah, he clearly sucks, but like, for all we know, he's been experimented on since he was a kid, and they've just been manipulating his personality and actions since then. Because he, ever since making that bus fall off, went to that doctor in that hospital. Same doctor, same hospital. Now the doctor's dead, can't tell his tale. Like, this might be a lot out of his hands. It also might not be. Maybe he was not great to begin with, and they're just nudging him slightly. Maybe all they're really doing is just Sierra Tan's voice. That's like, whatever. Like, I don't know. It could be anything. Holodex programming. Of course not. When Bond visited again for the first time in a week, the Frieza office looked somewhat different than before. The mountain of documents piled up on each employee's desk had now completely vanished. It must be that they went tumbling down in the earthquake, followed by Momose giving out orders to clean everything up. Thanks to that, the office left a clean, refreshed impression on him. Regarding it from the corner of his eyes as he sighed, Bond settled down in the wheeled chair he pulled over. He fanned his face busily with his beloved fan. But isn't it... I guess they do keep pointing out that, like, it's not warm enough for him to be fanning himself, but it's like late October. It's like cold now. Chilly at least. Momose, who had been typing away at the notebook PC case, cast a glance at his gloomy countenance and knit her eyebrows together. Is it new art, or was this the same background they had before? What is it? Sighing all the way as you came in here? Hey, Momo-chan. Have you ever seen someone perform a magic trick where a sword appears out of nowhere? A character? We met her before. Oh, you came late that day. Nope, you came late that day. She was the one who told him to go check out the, like, we recounted to you, but you didn't see her character. Yeah, that's why. She was the one who told him about the, like, gravity distortions. Also told him, or at least was cut off right as she was about to be like, hey, the main government is involved in this conspiracy. Those were like the big takeaways from her. Also, she's a sweets addict, and he keeps bribing her with sweets to be nice to him. But, you know, that's more character quirk than plot relevant. Who knows? I'm not that familiar with Sleight of Hand. I forgot, you came in late with that and we recounted it for you, but you hadn't seen the office and the character. She heads this place. Then what about teleportation? Like going inside a box, that sort of thing? No, that's not it. What are you trying to say? Are you trying to learn a party trick? No, if you don't know what I mean, that's fine. It's probably not related. You're an odd one. Momose shrugged and took one of the bean paste buns that Bond had brought as refreshments, popping it into her mouth. Why is Bond talking about swords appearing out of nowhere? Oh, because he saw the video, that's why. Never mind. No, he totally saw the video. He saw, what's her name? Popsicle chick with the D-sword. Yeah, okay. Forgot about that bit. Here's the tea. Suwa brought over 2 paper cups. The green tea he'd poured in them was steaming. Oh my, I'm sorry to make you serve us tea, Suwa-chan. Miho-chan has a cold, and she's taking the day off, see? Nah, no problem. Smiling breezily, he handed Momose and Bond their paper cups. Bond had taken Suwa here in the past when they were working on a different case, ever since he had begun looking more to Momose as his mentor than to Bond, his direct supervisor. Momose had also taken a liking to the young and honest Suwa, and she didn't disparage him the way she did Bond. More importantly, what were you talking about? I was asking for evidence of the kinds of party performances a policewoman might like. Huh. How intriguing. Suwa-chan, you mustn't always take this no-good detective's bait. I recommend attaching yourself to a more competent superior. If not, your upward mobility is going to be severely limited. You make it sound like I've got no hopes of getting promoted. You make it sound like I haven't saved this whole heckin' time. We should save. It's true. If it frustrates you, take your work more seriously. I do take it seriously. Ignoring Bond, who'd scrunched his face up as if he just couldn't accept it, Momose held the box of bean pastries out to Suwa. You have some too, Suwa-chan. Oh, thanks. For the record, I paid for those out of my own pocket. Thanks for letting me have them, senpai. Watching his junior bow his head neatly and reach a hand towards the bean pastries, Bon sighed
そ
yet
れより
again.
二人ともこれを見て
That aside, you two should come and look at this. A line graph was displayed on her laptop's monitor. Raising and falling like waves, it drew gentle curves. Sua, who had circulated behind Bon, tilted his head as he peered at it. What's this graph
ここ
of?
1年の渋
The
谷
GE rate in the Shibuya area over the past
お
year.
かしいと思わない
Don't you think it's strange? You're the one that told me that Shibuya's average GE rate is high, even compared to the rest of the
そう
world.
じゃなくて
No, not
気
that.
のせいかもしれない
It
けど
might be my imagination, but I have the feeling that the GE rate is being manipulated by someone. Is that even possible? I don't know. The graph seems unnatural somehow.
数値が小刻み
There are too many small variations in the
10年ぐ
numbers.
らい前まで遡って
I went
調べ
back
てみ
10
た
years as I researched it, but it's been like that all through the past 5 years. The guy from before, was Professor Ota his name? I know it's spelt differently, but he said, what was it again? Something like how the GE rate had increased compared to half a year before? Is it related to that? Right, it's definitely spelled
太
differently,
田
but
教
like,
授の調査では
by his research, the GE rate shouldn't undergo such minute shifts. I mean, some kind of abnormality is occurring, and it seems like it might be man-made, but 5 years? If it's continued that long, couldn't you say these are ordinary conditions rather than anything
一
abnormal?
つある
There's one
グ
more
ラフ
thing.
を細かく調べてい
When
く
you
と
examine the graph closely, it becomes apparent that the GE rate has a tendency to rise every weekend. Salarymen with their 2 days off would be grateful for that, I guess. Not that it's got much to do with me. Huh. I'd love to have Saturday off. I haven't taken any breaks in 2 months. I guess they were trying to decide between haven't had any breaks or taken any breaks, and left them both. Again, fan translation. Which is the only reason I can play this game, so like, thank you again, fan translators. I could point out little inconsistencies, but like, thank you. Momose shook her head a little in response to the disappointed-looking detectives, both of whom had hung their
書
heads.
かせてる場合じゃないわ
It's weird that they've translated and like officially localized every single game in the series except this one. It's really weird that they just left one out. To be fair, I think they left 2 out. They're all basically this game. There's this game, the Noah version of this game, which has a few extra scenes, and apparently remember how I said there's like a dating sim type Steins Gate game? Apparently there's a lighter hearted, I don't know exactly what genre type game, but the name implies maybe similar of this as well. None of them were localized, but it makes sense that like that wouldn't get localized if the OG game wasn't. Maybe. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. This isn't the time for jokes. You do realize it's fluctuating once per week. Like, I guess we'll see what Chaos Child brings. Maybe there's characters in that just as bad, and it's like, well, it's not that. I don't know. Moreover, the fluctuations come to a halt on New Year's, the Bon Festival, and so
何か
forth.
の意志が働いているとしか思えないわ
I can only assume that someone is deliberately making it happen. Yeah, New Year's and the Bon Festival are purely human things. Animals and plants don't celebrate them. Could it be the will of the planet or something? Yes, of course. The will of the planet? That's pretty grand sounding, or grand sounding. But even if it hypothetically existed, do you think the Earth is going to say Happy New Year to us? I was
年
joking.
末年始はともかく
New Year's is one thing, but the Bon Festival is only a custom in Japan. It's too well synchronized with Japanese social activity, huh? Isn't that kind of natural for
ちな
Shibuya?
みにここと
By the way, look here and here,
見て
said Momose, pointing first at the very center of the line graph and then to the most recent data on the far right-hand
こ
side.
の2箇所はすごく伸びているでしょう
It goes really high in these 2 places, see? Oh, it's not localized for legal reasons. Did it say what those were? Is it like... It seems weird. It seems weird that in this day and age we can get localized Super Robot Wars games. An engine. Oh, okay. So from that point they'd have to like... Even if they had the script, they'd have to basically recreate the game. Okay. That is a stupid reason. But it's unfortunately a reason that makes sense. I hate it. I hate that that's a thing that can happen. I have this license, so English people can't play this game that's part of a long ongoing series that people want to do. but that's how certain laws let things work. It's so stupid. It goes really high in these two places, see? The one on the right looks like the peak for the whole year.
1年どころか
Forget a year, it's the highest in a decade. What's the date? The one in the center is from 3 months ago. Remember? The little earthquake? Yeah. The one where 8 people died, though its magnitude was 3. They still haven't determined why the victims from it died, right? Huh, that's so. Ignoring the two detectives' exchange, Momose continued her explanation. And the one on the far right is from the day of the more recent earthquake. There, okay, Dev. Of course. Such a stupid reason. And like... What? Wouldn't they stand to make money off that? I watch it, I really don't remember it. Okay. I look forward to watching it after this, if only to see how bad it is. But again, I hear Chaos Child is worse than Head in anime, but I hear they're both not good. Like, why? Okay, I own the engine this works on. Like, the only reason I can think of is if it was somehow like part of the contract that they wouldn't get paid if they localized it. They'd be like, meh, you can't localize it. But like, why not? It sounds like a thing that would only be good for them. I'm not gonna try to figure it out. People are crazy.
あの日
But that means it's not gonna get localized, and it has nothing to do with like they don't think it'll sell or anything. It's like they can't. It's stupid. You know that there was a large-scale outbreak of electromagnetic waves on the same day, don't you? Seems like all computers in Shibuya broke down, but I'm an analog guy, so I don't know too much about it. My laptop at home got fried too. I didn't have time to repair it. They say the earthquake generated the rise in electromagnetic waves, but the truth might be the exact opposite.
電磁波の影響で
Electromagnetic waves were what caused the earthquake. Weird to think Madhouse did. Like, to be fair, like, I stated this last time we were talking about it. I get that taking a super long visual novel and trying to condense it into like a 12/24 episode anime is really, 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 really difficult. It's really easy to make that happen and not be great. So, like, I get it. Even good people who make good animes, that's not an easy thing to do. So, like, I get it. Every now and again, you get lightning in a bottle with, like, the Steins Gate anime where it's like, wow, somehow you pulled that off. But it's hard. So, like, as much as I keep talking about how they're supposed to be bad, 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 and I'm gonna laugh at them a bit when I watch them, I understand that's an inherently difficult thing to do. And that making a good one is way harder than making, like, a good anime to, like, manga to anime adaptation. That could, like, lead itself to, like, episodes and pacing. It's so much easier. Hey, they didn't say anything like that in the newspapers or on TV. Yeah. They also
私の推測だけど
They also started to not report on some of the other things that happened with the earthquake. Like the sky going white and stuff like that. Stuff that was like, you know, fairly noteworthy. And the news was just like, no, it's just an earthquake. Made make sense, art-wise would be great. Fair, yeah. Again, I look forward to checking it out, but I kind of get the feeling I'll get like 2 episodes in and be like, I see, and turn it off. It's my personal deduction through and through,
この
but
私の自信は
these 2 earthquakes, I think they were acts of man, not acts of God. Because neither of them was normal.
前の地震では
Yeah, I
震
mean,
度3っていう規模の
in a country that
8人も亡くなってるし
is designed to be able to handle earthquakes because they happen frequently enough, they have that many people die on like fairly small earthquakes. They constantly were like, this is weird. So it's weird. The previous earthquake was only magnitude 3, but 8 people still died
そ
in
して
it.
今回は震度
And the one this time around was magnitude 5 with 118 deaths. You're saying too many people have
さっき
died?
ワンちゃん言ったでしょ
You mentioned it yourself earlier. The cause of death is still unknown for over half of those who passed away.
あの尋常じゃないよ
Spoilers. Yeah, I wouldn't look up anything at all until I was done. Oh, yeah, no, I wouldn't touch it. It's irregular. Well,
それに
certainly. Besides, there are rumors about how the sky turned white. Now that you mention it, as time passed, everyone totally stopped
マ
reporting
ス
on
コ
it.
ミに何らか
Someone may have been
の圧
putting
力が
pressure on the media. Wait, the Maiwa party? Or
おそら
Meiwa?
くそうよ。
Probably. Are you kidding me? We may need to take a thorough look at all the businesses and groups with connections to the Meiwa
もう
party.
やったわよ。
Already done. That's Momo-chan for you, always fast at work. And... Momose raised both hands in a huge stretch. She tilted her head a little, making the bones in her neck crack
そ
pleasantly.
れらしい当た
I
り
didn't hit on anything likely looking. I gave up. Gave up, you say? Momo-chan, it isn't that your deductions are off the mark after all, Momo-chan-san.
そうかもしれないわね。
That could be the
これ
case.
でも結構
Even
時間
then,
かけて
I
調べ
spent a
た
lot of time researching
もう
this,
そっちの
to
け
the
で
point of disregarding my real work.
でも行き詰まっちゃったわ
But I've reached my limits. Either they're concealing everything with particular skill, or as Suwa-chan suggested, my conjecture is wrong.
が検討
Huh. Times like this, it's a detective's ironclad role to attack things from another angle. Senpai, do you have anything in mind? Stopping his fan-waving hand, Bon licked his lips. Who would benefit from having the GE rate raised on the weekend? I don't know. Since then, I'd stopped hearing hallucinations, but I couldn't stand staying in the classroom any longer, and I spent nearly half the day cooped up in the bathroom, waiting for classes to end. The reason I didn't return to my base right away was because I was still attached to the idea of maybe being able to meet Remy. So after classes ended and everyone had gone home, I snuck back into the empty classroom. Remy would be waiting there alone, and she'd smile when she saw me and...
石
Salute! Where'd you go? I was waiting for you!
一緒に帰ろっか
Yes. Well, let's leave together, Taku. She would definitely just be waiting for you. I thought maybe she'd say that to me. I hoped just a little for such a development to take place. But... no one was in the classroom. Of course no one was waiting for me. I tried going to the courtyard. This is where Remy had told me, I'll be there for you. But no one was there now. Only the purple flowers blooming in the flower bed swayed forlornly, blown by the autumn wind. When I took the vermilion handkerchief out of my bag, I had received it from Remy back then. Okay, so he still has the handkerchief. She at least existed enough to give that to him. I experimentally sniffed it, but because I'd washed it, the floral scent had vanished. I had the handkerchief, but not the scent. I had memories of her, but Remy wasn't here. There I was, wanting to see the girl I'd made up in my head.
なんて
Far. Haunting the school building after
なん
classes.
て救いよ
How
うがない
far
んだ
beyond salvation can I get? Well, considering what you were about to do in the classroom earlier, you are so far past salvation. I mean, ooh, hoo, hoo. I mean, comparatively, you pressing a feminine handkerchief to your lips is like, that's nothing. Whatever. That's harmless. Don't hurt nobody. It's so damn creepy. I thought I'd retch. But had no problems with what he's going to do earlier. Not creepy, not... Nope. I left school and stumbled around aimlessly. Nothing seemed to matter anymore. My anxiety about the possibility of being attacked by Shogun and Yua had drifted off somewhere as well. On the contrary, I hoped they would be kind enough to kill me painlessly. My mind had gone into utter depression mode. As I regarded the central district of Shibuya from this perspective of mine, its atmosphere was brutal enough to accelerate my gloom. No one walking along the road was smiling. They glared harshly at their surroundings. Something in the air made it seem as if it wouldn't be strange if the people passing me started fighting with me at any moment. Simply walking along like this, I spotted a number of stores with closed shutters, though they would normally have been boisterous with customers. I had a vague sense that the number of cars on the road had decreased as well. The Jumbotron that had always noisily blared out sound was now silent. In exchange came incandescent, far-off police sirens, cars honking their horns and squealing. There were no signs of how I'd caused such a riot at the plaza a week ago. Though it hadn't yet vanished from people's memories, perhaps I was already gone from the city's memory, chased beyond the far side of forgetfulness. It would have been nice if I could forget every one of my memories as well. Knowing nothing, being ignorant, remaining a fool. Acting like a silly clown. People like that must surely live rose-colored lives and relish every single day. Ah yes, true bliss is having no memories whatsoever. Ignorance is a sin. There are people who say, there are some things you'll be happier not knowing, but that's simply naive. I had a feeling that Senna had told me so. What's wrong with being naive? People aren't, I am not, all that strong. He's right. We're always seeking someone else's salvation. I couldn't do anything on my own, nor did I want to. I stood in the center of the street and closed my eyes. Knowing only part of the truth as I did now was the most burdensome of all possible situations. Shogun and D-Swords, for instance. I hadn't wanted to know about them, but I'd found out. That said, if somebody asked me, so what are they really? I wouldn't be able to come up with an answer. Well, Shogun is this amorphous thing that everything that goes wrong in my life, I blame it on Shogun. It's either a conspiracy about Shogun, or Shogun plotting something, or a trap from Shogun. It's everything. Everything bad in reality is Shogun. I didn't know the answer. Shall I try to die? I thought as I looked up at the roof of Oakfront. If I died, perhaps my memories would be reset, and it would be possible to replay everything. I mean, in a roundabout way, yes. If he died here and it was a game over, I'd go back to the beginning and replay with different choices. So he's not wrong. Say, person behind me, what do you think? To be fair, I did just say what I thought. So, you know, your role-playing utterly failed this time around. You were wrong in how you cultivated your character. You should have gone with a cooler, more heroic character. It had to be someone sociable and kind to girls, one who would challenge the strong and aid the weak, one with a fiery sense of justice. You can't defeat the last boss with me. You can't use me to clear your game. Don't expect anything of me. Reset me. I'm begging you, take this worthless self of mine and erase it. Alright. Return to... No one erased me. Instead came the impact of someone banging into my shoulder. And then finally, maybe, yeah. Hey, you're in the way. Thought I was hallucinating. Yes, you're walking the streets with your eyes closed. Bumping into somebody should be a hallucination. I'd heard the female version in the morning, so this time it must be the male version. Not that I'd ask for one. I'd rather have a more moe voice hallucination. You're in the way. One I could vap to. But if they whispered sexy lines in my ear, I'd have a boner right now in the middle of town. You bumped into somebody who said, get out of the way, we're walking here. Dude, don't ignore me. Hey, you, aren't you Nishijo? How does it feel to be the fake psychic boy? You were on TV a little while ago, had a big audience, didn't you? Lend us a moment, Esper-kun. I opened my eyes. You guys stood there, surrounding me. Glad you were thinking naughty thoughts while you could have gotten away from this. They wore baggy clothes and had yellow, silver, and red hair. Two had piercings in their ears or their nose. One had a piercing in just his ear. One was the type of Ganguro men who are so rare nowadays, they're practically a protected species. Here's my death flag, I thought. Was this another unhappiness trap? Really, they came one after the other. I'm telling you, I don't care anymore. Hurry up and kill me, because then I'll get reset and become reborn. You have a knife or two ready with you? Stab me properly so I die right away. My knees began to shake with fear. Help! He held an instinct. Oh, that sounds like somebody who really wants them to stab him. It was close to a scream, but I couldn't pay attention to appearances. Somebody help! I don't want to die, I don't want to die, I don't want to die. I was lying about not caring. Even in such desperate circumstances, I don't want to die! Shut the fuck up. They covered my mouth. I couldn't say anything. They grabbed my arms on either side. Make a fuss and you're dead. Well, that was when I stopped resisting. God's judgment. They dragged me to an uninhabited alleyway. This is a new area, though, right? I launched a preemptive strike against the leering trio. Forgive me! My preemptive strike is... I'm sorry. Apologizing in a quavering voice, I prostrated myself. If it's money you want, I'll give you all of mine, so please let me go. I held my wallet out to them. The delinquent snatched it. You know, these three might actually be delinquents. You're loaded. That's what I'd expect from a boy's psychic. You're a nice guy. I like you. Prostrated, I let out a breath of relief. Apparently, they were going to let me No. I'll let you be one of my buds. There's a 1,000,000 yen fee for joining up with us, and it ain't optional. I ought to have you pay straight off the bat, but I'll give you until tonight. Well, I'll cut it down by half if you show us your superpowers at work or something. I was about saying something, huh? I'm telling you to show us your superpowers. Can't do it? I'm asking if you can't do it. Pain ran through my side. I thought I might have broken a rib. I couldn't breathe. I began to feel faint. I had vertigo. The foot of the thug in front of me entered my field of sight. The tip of his shoe came flying towards my face with incredible force. Ow. I wondered what had happened. I thought I'd felt enough pain in my face to make me pass out, but it might have been my imagination. I figured I'd open my eyes, but my eyelids wouldn't move. The darkness wouldn't disappear from me. What? Already gone limp? What do we do? Leave it at this? Couldn't we make him hurt a little more? It's what that Darth Spider guy told us to do. Oh. Yeah, he said to mess him up real bad. You must really hate him to pay us money just for fucking him up. Oh. Further questions. Many further questions. And so it's time for the sequel. Don't hold a grudge against us. I'm sorry. I want to kill them. I'm sorry. I want to kill them. Is my mouse cable acting weird? That was a sound effect. Hey, what are you fucking around for? You're kidding me. What's that? Hey, stop, quit it. Stop it, no. Sounds of being punched. Man, if only he had opened his eyes and seen what had happened. Oh, hello. The faint light of dusk filtered through the hospital window. The twilight-colored light sharply divided the middle of the room into that which was bright and that which was dark. What it made visible was snow-white sheets covering a bed, a handheld game system laid beside the pillow, a number of scholarly books lined up along the shelves, the pale purple petals of the cosmos flowers arranged in a vase. It was an orderly room. Nothing moved, a space where time seemed to have stopped. Been mind control there? Something happened. Window that cut a piece out of the dusk sky. A small figure sat in a wheelchair by the windowsill. His back facing the window, he remained motionless. His breaths were so gentle and came so far apart as to make one think he might be dead. When did, I think, no, it might have been before this. Date? Specifically the original, not the remaster. February 20th, 2003. Yeah. Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne had a similar character to Shogun who ended up being Satan. I don't remember his name, though. Damn it. I'm gonna find a picture. Wheelchair man. Oh. A little different, I guess. Way more of an old man than a decrepit, smaller man. I'll link it in the chat anyway, but yeah. Yeah. Whenever I see him, that's what I'm reminded of, but it's definitely different, for sure. His skin was covered in wrinkles, his cheeks were gaunt, his eyes were sunken, not a single hair grew in his head. An appearance that evoked uncertainty about whether to call him a boy or an old man. Yeah, it's for sure a bit different, but that's still just what I think of whenever he pops up. It's like, oh yeah, like Nocturne. The shadow of he who called himself Shogun elongated all the way to the door. There, for the first time, the world moved. The door gradually opened, and someone came from the dark hallway towards the sunlight. Sakahita Rimi stood still at the threshold without entering the hospital room. Excuse me. The sunset illuminated her tormented expression. Let's stop already, okay? It's unfortunate, but Nishijo Takumi, needs to be erased. Shogun didn't budge an inch at her words. Why? Because he's dangerous. Grief infused Rimi's voice as she answered. Her eyes, too, appeared faintly damp. So I'm assuming this is another thing Takumi is not seeing, but we the player are. Shall I erase him?
ダメだよ。
You mustn't. Ultimately, even Remy couldn't discern whether he moved his mouth when he
彼
spoke.
には
There's
やって
something I
もらわ
need
な
him
く
to
ちゃいけな
do
い
for
ことが
me. He's gotta get the D sword. Remy's hair fell forward as she hung her head, and she quietly pushed it back with her fingers.
例えば
For instance, do you remember your dreams? Yes,
そっか
I see.
私
I soon forget
すぐ
them.
できる人と
Some people can remember and some
できる
can't.
人はきっ
The
と
people who can must be
すご
romantics.
く長い
I often have a very
長い夢を
long,
よく
long
見てい
dream.
る間は
It seems as though years are passing as I dream it.
私も
I used to be the
そうだ
same.
そうだった
I feel like I used to
気
be
が
the
するでも
same. But that's an
実際
illusion.
の時間としては
Dreams actually
寝てい
take
るう
place
ち
in
の
only 2 or 3
ほんの
seconds as you
2-3
sleep.
秒程度の心の歌方なの
Evanescent bubbles of the heart, perhaps. I had heard that, and I don't, to be fair, I don't know if there's science to back it up, and I haven't looked into the science, but I have heard that all the bits of the dreams you remember are in the seconds before you wake up, which is why you often wake up. It's not that you wake up as a dream gets to that point, it's more that, that was all of the dream in that 1 second, 2 seconds leading up to that point. I don't know if that's true or not. I haven't looked at just I heard on the internet to that time. I don't know if it's actually factual. And to be fair, I think it's an interesting enough thing that's whether it's factual enough, it's cool.
だから
So, wake up
早めに
quickly.
と
If not,
あな
someday,
たは
Nishijo Takumi is going to kill
それ
you.
でも構わないよ
Even if he did, I wouldn't
夢
mind.
から覚めるわけ
I
にもいか
mustn't
ない
waken from my
この
dream.
夢は
I have to see it through to its
Kanketsu.
conclusion.
完結した夢の
What's
後
going
に
to remain after the dream
何
concludes?
が残るの
Who knows? Could be anything. Someone shook my shoulder lightly. It was very constrained, and moreover, their hand left my shoulder after shaking me only once. I sensed someone peering into my face. My consciousness was awakening little by little. The ache in my body revived together with it. Is this a transfer student? So many questions. Yeah. The scent was piercing my nose, vivid and nausea-inducing. It was the smell of blood. My upper lip stung. The inside of my mouth tasted like I'd licked a piece of iron. Slowly opened my eyes. Hey, I was in the same alley as before. I lay face down on the asphalt, and right before my eyes was a tiny brownish puddle, akin to something you might see leaking out of raw garbage. Grimacing at the stench, I roused myself. It hurt all over. My face was in particular pain. It burned and stung as though some were bringing a lighter closer and closer to me. A familiar girl knelt close beside me and watched me with a teary-seeming face. The transfer student, the girl who joined my class. What was her name? Oshihara. I wondered why she was here. The transfer student held something out to me. My wallet. Why did she have it? Still dazed, I looked around. The trio of delinquents who had quarreled with me earlier had been lying there, covered in blood. What was this? Somebody had totally worked them over. Their faces bore no resemblance to how they originally had been shaped. Were they dead? They didn't stir. Couldn't be. The 7th New-Gen incident? Who would do such a thing? Was it me? Had I? The transfer student stood up and, still pale, beckoned me with her hand. Tears in the corner of her eyes, she looked back and forth between me in my confusion and the fallen trio. Oh, probably. I mean, she's a female character with art. She probably has a D-sword. And she abruptly seized my hand and tottered off into a run. When we arrived at the main street, the transfer student let go of my hand. Although we didn't run for a long distance, she already lost her breath. Both of us had fallen silent. Maybe the transfer student was just as bad as talking at me. Come to think of it, it might have been coincidental, but I've never heard her speak. Except for when you first met her. No, that sort of thing didn't matter. More importantly, I had trouble understanding the situation. Those 3 thugs had picked a fight with me and battered me. When she first met, did she speak aloud to him, though? Remy definitely commented on her, stopping by his desk, but I don't know if she actually spoke aloud. Maybe he heard it in his brain. Yeah, that was so long back. I'm not sure. And to be fair, I don't know if we know. It seems like I'd passed out, but how long had I been unconscious? Oh, well, happy fun times here. About 5 minutes. Oh no. If she was the voice that was reading his mind in the classroom, responding to him, that means she knows exactly what he was going to do. Like, vividly knows what he was going to do. Red? Alright, red it is. I'm saving just because I haven't saved in a while. And I used to save at all these decisions, and then I just stopped doing that for some reason, apparently. Alright, red it is. Now, 5 minutes. What? Again, I heard it again. I figured someone I knew was nearby talking to me, but I didn't spy anyone likely. Damn it, why did I have to start hearing oral hallucinations today? It's not a hallucination. Which meant... Startled, I looked up at the sky. A vocal attack by Shogun! Was he... This is Shogun's true voice. Was he monitoring my thoughts? Shogun? Hmm? He was attacking me via satellite! Crumbling under the pressure, I cradled my head and squatted in place. He was going to kill me. He was going to kill me this time for sure. I hadn't done as he said at O-Front, and he'd moved into action, like this out of fury at me. What should I do? How could I protect myself from his barrage? As I thought about it, I found myself flung into despair. I had nowhere to run. This time for sure he'll kill me. An invisible attack from outer space aimed at me with pinpoint precision. Even if I took cover, it would pierce straight through to me, no doubt. There was nowhere I could hide or run, anywhere in Japan. It was the end. I'd already reached my end. Are you scared of Kozupi? What do you mean, Kozupi? You trying to knock me off guard with such a moe voice? Why do you insist on prowling after me? I'm not prowling. What do you plan on doing with me? Explode my head? Make my brain alone melt into goop? Wasn't that what Johnny the Homicidal Maniac could do? Kill just my brain and turn me into a vegetable. No, I didn't want that. I don't want to die. Somebody prodded me in the shoulder as I curled up in a ball, cowering. When I fearfully raised my face, the transfer student was there as before. She poked my finger and attempted to speak, but nothing came out, and in the end she raised a tentative hand. Who? It was a comic one of my friends in high school used to... Oh. One of my friends used to read in high school called Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. It's the same... It's Jonan Vasquez. He was the guy who did I think he also did the art for Invader Zim. I believe he was also the guy who did Invader Zim, but this was what he did beforehand. But I've never actually read it myself. He also directed the one Mindless Self-Indulgence music video I know of and watch. I don't know, that I vaguely recall him having the power to like concentrate and explode people's brains, but maybe I'm thinking something else because I never read the comic. So it's just memories of people telling me about something from high school. So I'm probably wrong. But I know it's a real thing because one of the characters popped up in the Moodai bot the other day. So I know Johnny the Homicidal Maniac is a real thing that was done by Jonan Vasquez. That's a thing. But I'm probably wrong about what it's about because I never read it. She poked my fingers and attempted to speak, but nothing came out, and in the end she raised a tentative hand. Kozupi is Kozupi. Kozupi or Kozipi. I keep saying Kozu. Oh, because she says both anyway. Kozipi is Kozupi. And Kozupi is Orihara Kozue, not the transfer student. Alright, I like that face. That's good. It's the first like emotion we've seen her show, and it's a good one. I cannot imagine, as the player who can hear his thoughts, I truly can't imagine a worse thing than being an in-universe character that can hear his thoughts. At all. Especially her, after what he was thinking the other day. But even ignoring that, if we somehow ignore that, I still just can't imagine a worse hell than being able to hear his thoughts. Kosuhe. I could faintly recall hearing that name from Misumi-kun a long while ago. Kosuhe, Kozupi? No way! This voice was being sent straight into my head. The transfer student nodded with all her... She just told you her name. She just told you. That's what she... You know? I'm gonna guess that's not canonically the reason why, but I like it. I like it.
テレパシー
Telepathy?
仕組
I don't really know how it works, but I can do it. It's ridiculous. The source of the voice was her, you
み
mean?
西条くん
Nishijo-kun, are you okay? If you can read his thoughts, you know better than anyone in this game that he is not okay. Facing downward, the transfer student looked up through her eyelashes and pointed at my face. Her fingertip trembled. It's dripping. Touched my face. The space beneath my nose was wet. I had a nosebleed. The transfer student offered me some pocket tissues. I had an eerie feeling as I accepted them from her and wiped the blood coming out of my nose. Transfer student. I'm Kozupi, you know? She keeps telling you her name and you keep going, the transfer student. Also, 1 second. I hate my nose. All the time. No, Kozupi wasn't moving her mouth. She wasn't talking. Despite that, why could I hear her voice?
心の声なのら
Voice of my heart. Oh, so it's just like, you should die, 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 you should die. I can't believe you think about doing that to me. You should die, 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 you should die. Don't talk like that. It's a turn-off to hear it in the third dimension. Sure, Takumi. So sorry. Hey, could you hear the voice of my heart
聞
too?
こえるよ
I can hear you.
普通に
Oh, why don't you
話さないと
talk normally?
なんで
恥ずかし
It's
いし
embarrassing. I see. I could understand how she felt, because I was the same. She looked around nervously, like a small animal, took a glance at me, then began walking towards the station by herself.
離れ
I
た方がいい
think it'd be better to leave here. Why? Perplexed, I followed her. I noticed it as I walked. There was a stabbing pain in my side. Since it throbbed every time I took a step, I stopped when I couldn't stand it any longer. I held my side and took a breath. So many people. Freaking hate Shibuya. Why do you live here? I felt like everyone who passed by was laughing at me. It felt like all of them were watching me. I began to think that everyone knew my face. Well, your face is now covered in blood and probably looks a little different. Don't look at me. Don't laugh at me. I wanted to rest someplace where there weren't any people.
ほいじゃ
Look at that. I know a great place. I'll lead the way. Kozupi's energy level was blatantly different from the countless times I'd spotted her at school. And though she was wordless in real life, her mental voice was so,
あ
just now you thought I was a noisy girl. It was convenient to be able to have mental conversations, but also kind of disagreeable. Rather, I ended up accepting it right away. But how did this work anyway? Could it be a real psychic power?
やっぱり
So you think Kozupi is creepy after all?
こんなの普通
This kind of thing isn't normal. I don't mind things that aren't normal. Lately, I've had a lot more opportunities to encounter other eccentricities. Besides, you speak kind of weirdly, but you aren't scary, and you don't have a crazy conspiracy theory, which makes you preferable to the rest of them. Just fine.
それ
He doesn't say. It makes me happy when you say that. She looks happy. Kozupi abruptly started crying as she walked along. Surprised, I hastily returned her tissue pack. She bowed her head to me more than was necessary as she accepted it and wiped the tears below her eyes. Back to what I was talking about. It was creepy and unsettling to have her hear everything I thought. Those were my unvarnished impressions.
そうだよね
Right.
ごめんなさい
I'm sorry.
もう
But, I hear it even if I don't
聞きたくな
wanna.
くても
So, and does she only hear his? Because that's just a hell greater than hell. Yuppers. Well, whatever the case, you don't want to hear that from a gross otaku like me. A guy as creepy as me really doesn't have any value.
そんなこ
It's not true! You in fact have negative value! You're draining the value of people around you! Just as I was about to revert to depression mode, Kozupi cried out loudly in the voice of her heart. No, you can't say things like that. Such sad-sounding things. Maybe she didn't hear that one thing? I don't know. She started streaming tears again. Why was she crying? Did she sympathize with me? If so, I didn't need it. After all, I created personalities in my brain and mistook them for real live people. Remy, for example.
それって
Is that Shikihara-san? I
じゃ
mean,
なかった
Shikihara-san?
さんのこと
You know her? Well, she's our classmate. Alright, so at the least,
彼女さん
there are other people who still know her now. Okay. And she's your your girlfriend. Wrong!
あ違う
Wrong? I totally only thought she was. Josephine knew about Remy, which signified that Remy truly existed. Yeah, she clearly still existed. I guess the handkerchief kind of proved that, but like, still wasn't really sure. She wasn't my delusion. She wasn't a character I devised in my brain. Remy was really there. I still have doubts, because he had no memory of her until she showed up. But apparently, they did things to, like, there's so many layers of I don't know in this game. And I don't know. I truly don't. At all.
そうか。
See. Thank goodness. But if so, why hadn't she contacted me? Not even once. I must have fallen out of favor with her after what happened at O-Front. I feel like prior to this, I would definitely say my favorite, like, unreliable narrator game would definitely be Silent Hill 2. But you don't really know it's unreliable till, like, further into the game. This is fairly, like, from the get-go. Maybe not from, like, minute 1, but at the very least by the end of the first stream, we knew there's shenanigans going on. Like, 100% for sure by the end of stream number 1, it was like, oh, okay. And you're just the entire time like, okay, then what is this real? Is that real? Is this real? Does that make sense? Does this make sense? Everything's a line of truth at the same time. Yes, exactly.
先畑さん
On the day of the earthquake, Sakihara-chan went pale and left early. She hasn't come to school since then, you know? I don't know, because I don't go to school. Something sad might have happened to her family, maybe?
かも
I see. Well, we know she's at some point met up with Shogun, which does seem to be that Shogun is a physical person, but then why did he only see Shogun when he was hallucinating? If we take that scene as exact value, as like, that definitely happened, and it's not a hallucination or something like that, Shogun exists. Shogun exists in a hospital room. I wouldn't be surprised if that scene took place outside of the world of this game. I wouldn't be surprised if that was in like the real world, and the stuff that's going on here is in like the game or a game, something. Like it kind of had that vibe. Like this takes place in the dream world, and that took place in the real world. Remy's like paprika and can just bounce between. I don't know. There's so many potential outcomes to all this. All of them seem equally possible at this point. I felt delivered. Knowing that Remy hadn't thrown me aside seriously made me seem about to cry. Racing Taku, yeah. Because the way she acts in game, or in what we had seen of her in first person, that seems to be not her MO at all. Why would she want to do that? But that version of her seemed really serious and really like, no, he gotta go, he's dangerous. Which, to be fair, he almost literally sexually assaulted a classmate in the classroom. Yeah, he's dangerous. Yeah. And that wasn't a multiple personality thing. That wasn't a, oh, I was asleep and somebody died. That was a conscious effort. Yeah. If that were the case, I had reason to attend school again. I wanted to see Remy one more time. Until then, I try my hardest and keep going to school.
気をつけてね
Be careful. Eh?
西条くんが
I didn't say it because I thought you were going out with Sakihara-san, but
先畑さん
be
には
careful of Sakihara-san. What do you mean?
先畑さ
I
ん
don't
は
really get
よく
Sakihara-san.
わか
I'm asking what you mean. You don't get her, you say. The staking? Or how was I missing my memories of being classmates with her since freshman year? There were definitely things about Remy that remained mysterious even now. But she'd saved me countless times. When I was frightened, she told me, I'll be there for you when the rain starts to fall. Definitely a public threat, yeah, absolutely. Like, bare minimum a public threat. She wasn't my enemy. For some reason, Kozupi's eyes were rolling back in her head. She'd think so much at once. Kozupi can't keep Upsy-Daisy. Sorry. It was sort of odd. When I was talking to people, I generally ended up saying less than 2% of the conversation, but when I spoke in my heart, I talked too much, or rather, thought too much. Yeah, no, we knew from minute one you overthink things. That's such a noticeable thing, yeah, It was the same for Kozupi. I hadn't thought she would be so talkative, in her head anyway. Doesn't feel much like I'm talking. I just think. It comes flowing in. Beep beep to the other person, boom bang back to me. That's how telepathy works, right there. If you're not used to it, your thoughts can get all mushy-wushy itself with theirs, and it gets all unya. Man, that unya, I immediately went back to heckin' Ferris. Like, that's such a Ferris. Is that the same voice actress? Hold on. No, I don't want to look up anything about this game. I don't want to look up anything. But, like, that was such a Ferris sound. In Japanese, please? Although I sort of got the nuances of it. So there weren't any little sublets like in the regular conversation. Things like seeing the other person's expression or finding yourself unable to say what you wanted wouldn't happen. If people's thoughts kept leaking out, you'd lose the ability to read the atmosphere. Neither a one-way or a two-way transmission. It wasn't altogether unlike having to pick one flying arrow out of many and stop yourself from listening to the others. That's why it's comfortable and it makes you feel close. But it's easy to hurt people. Takumi, yes, it's easy to hurt people. Just saying. For a second, Kozupi's face clouded over, but she soon put on a teary smile. She's not Ferris's VA. Okay. Just, like, the rest of it doesn't quite sound like that, but that one nya was just like... It's your first time, but you're really good at it. Things Takumi will never hear again in his life. So sorry. He absolutely deserves it, but, like... Your beep beep beeps match with Kozupi is... All Moe sounds the same. That's probably it, honestly. My beep beep beeps. Was she trying to say that our wavelengths matched? I hope not. Right, wavelengths. Anybody who can match wavelengths with Takumi, is she also a murderer? Is she gonna go around sexually harassing people? Assaulting, not harassing at that rate. Assaulting, like, I don't think anybody should ever match wavelengths with this guy. Well, it might have been because Sierra-tan had the same kind of speech quirks. But you were scary back then. Back then? This morning in the classroom. Yeah, he was, wasn't he? He was pretty scary back then in the classroom. True, she might have. We don't know. And if he was only gone out for 5 minutes and she knew he was out for 5 minutes, yeah, that seems like either she did it or she was watching the whole time. That's the only options if she knew he was out for 5 minutes, so... Now that she mentioned it, I'd fantasize about some really bad stuff. That is the single biggest downplaying of a situation in human history. I'm pretty sure it would be less of a downplaying to call the Big Bang as, you know, I guess it happened, it wasn't very important. That's why I thought, and I just kind of had to talk to you. Though really, I've decided to let as few people as possible know about my power. So he was super scary, decided to talk to him about it. But not be like, hey, you, stop that. Stop that. Don't do that. No. No, at the time I hadn't given a damn about anything. Well, they were mere delusions to the end, I guess. No, you were standing up to take action. The delusions were bad enough, but you decided life wasn't worth living, that's how you wanted to go out, and you were standing up to do it. It'd be normal to despise me for it, yes. And we do. We do. Sure. If he really did it, Kozuki would... He was about to, though. Killed you. Okay. Yeah. Oh, that voice did also say, hey, look at all these other students. They're worthless. You should kill them all. Yeah, okay. Yeah, maybe she does vibe with this wavelength more than it seems. She said something so disturbing with such innocence. The gap between the two made me shudder. We silently, albeit continuing to speak in our minds, crossed through the shopping district and came out in Okokashira Avenue. That's why she vibes. Murderer. Yeah. From the way we walked wordlessly without glancing at each other's faces, an observer might have perceived us as a charmingly naive young couple. Oh. Next to me, Kozubi caught an enormous breath. Eyes round, she looked up at me. Couple? No, it's just an example. An example. You're going all yeah on me again. I thought you'd give me a lovey-dovey confession. Sorry. Yeah, it was pretty hard to cope with how everything passed through to her. When talking with Kozuki, it would behoove me to do my best not to wander into unnecessary daydreams. I don't think that's possible for him. I don't even think it's slightly possible. I want to ask about the moment when you went on TV last week. She wouldn't believe me even if I told her. Don't decide that for yourself. Kozuki was down below when it happened. Below? At the Scramble Crossing, in front of the turnstiles at the Hachiko exit. I was just passing through. And I'm like, yeah, I agree with both of those things. She might be a serial killer or something, but I kind of like her. I'm baffled by the fact that she literally heard the thoughts of what he was fantasizing about doing and went, I want to chat with this guy. Not, I want to chat with this guy. Like, I heard the whole time your voice saying, I want to save Nanami-san. I gotta save her. I heard you. My mental voice had traveled that far. There was an unexpectedly great distance between the O-front roof and the station turnstiles. That's how strong your emotions were then. Then Kozuki would understand. I hadn't created such a ruckus with the intention of putting on a psychic performance. Yeah, so you don't have any value. You don't not have any value. Don't not? But in the end, it hadn't done any good. I'd prioritized my own life over saving Nanami, my little sister. I'd fled at the very brink of things. Kozuki stopped in front of Roft. She looked at me as she pointed at the store entrance. Apparently the place she'd said she would guide me to was inside here. She's still gonna kill him? Maybe. It doesn't seem that way, but she's mentioned murdering people multiple times by now. Oh, shoot. I wonder if she can read his thoughts when he's not himself. Maybe she, A, knows what he's done that even we don't know. B, wants to bring that side of him out and go on a murder spree. Like, she might know more than we, the player, know at this rate. I don't think there was anywhere to rest in Roft. Like, if she could hear his thoughts from, like, the top of a tall building to the middle of the Scramble Crossing beneath him when he had strong emotional thoughts, imagine what his emotional thoughts were like when he was murdering someone. Probably a wide radius on that one. Probably. Also still going with the fact that he's the new gen murderer, which he might not be. We have so much conflicting information. Like, I'm going with that because we've had multiple people tell him or mention that he is dangerous. One person straight up been like, hey, you did this. There's no other way you could have, like, photographic proof of this. But the photographic proof he had wasn't actual proof. It wasn't the scene of the actual murder. The photograph he had taken was the greatly embellished version. Full Moe Alexia, I mean, she's probably a bad force too. Yeah, probably. She most likely at this rate knows either as much as we the player do or more. Depending on if she lives anywhere near where he lives, she knows a lot. Maybe she doesn't though. I don't know. There's a lot of unknowns. Besides, there were a lot of customers in a small enclosed space there. Without my realizing it, my legs had started shaking. The cheers and bellows I'd heard from the pedestrian crossing that night echoed in my head. I didn't want to go anywhere that was full of people. I wouldn't have anywhere to escape if I entered Raft. It's all okay. Disregarding my fear, she went further and further ahead. Doing my best not to look what lay around us, I had no choice but to hurry on after her. When we got on the upward escalator, Kozuki turned back at me, standing behind her. With her small frame standing one step higher put her at about the same height as me. Nanami-chan turned out fine, didn't she? Then it's thanks to how hard you tried. I hadn't saved her myself. It was the same as if I hadn't done anything. You stretched your hand from the roof, didn't you? What were you trying to do? Fly away all Pune-like? No, I was trying to take hold of the sword. It was an illusionary sword, one that blended into the vistas I saw from the rooftop. We still don't know that. Yeah, we still don't know if she's okay. We have no first-person confirmation that she's okay. The only person who said so is the nurse, who has been... Ooh, so unreliable. A D-sword? Yeah, that's it. He'd said I could grasp it if I reached out, but I couldn't do it.
なんで
How? I unthinkingly shouted. A couple passing us on the downward escalator gave me cold looks as I hurriedly covered my mouth with my hand. Excuse me. Kozupi, how do you know about D-swords? Because Kozupi has one too. Yeah. Eh? When we got off the escalator at the 5th floor, Kozupi casually raised her right hand over her head. It was similar to the gesture of somebody using her hand to create a shadow as a projection against the protection against the brightness of the sun. Light suddenly materialized in the air, following her hand. No more so than simple light, they were lines. If I were to make an analogy, they resembled a wireframe. Numerous lines of light intermingled intricately in the space where there should have been nothing, and at last they formed a shape akin to that of a snowboard. Several streaks of blue light, more fiercely brilliant than the wireframe lines, ran across it. Kozupi closed her open hand. That's a sword and a half, yeah. Do you have a D-sword or do you have a D-claymore? The instant she did, the thing had become a wireframe, transformed to a solid, cold-seeming metal plank, as though textures had been applied to it.
そうだ
D-sword? Its shape was all too separate from that of Ayase's and Senna's, but even so, it had the same sort of air to it. Well, what are we going to D-sword? D-surfboard, yes. It looks like it could be destructive. This is a GS main. Yeah, of course. Clearly, that's a good thing. Only cool people are GS mains. It's true. Look it up. Too sinister to be called a plank. Too undecorative to be called a sword. It possessed both innocent ferocity and an awe-inspiring destructiveness. She carelessly held it on high. Why did Kozupi have a D-sword? Because Kozupi is... Smiling innocently, Kozupi turned back towards me. Shogun-san's henchman. Oh. That vast snowboard-esque plank flashed as though to slice the air. Oh. I couldn't quite comprehend what had happened. Everything ended before I had time to react. Kozupi embraced her D-sword with her petite body. Plastered to it wetly was blood. Bye-bye, Takumi-san. My body slithered and crumpled. Guess you made the right choice, yeah. Anything that ends with a dead Takumi is the right call. As I began to collapse, I tried to catch myself by stepping forward with my right foot. But my leg wouldn't move. I'd lost all sensation of the lower half of my body. There was a scorching heat in the area around my waist.
あれ
Huh? My body fell forward. Ugh, the sound effects. I couldn't move freely. Barely lifting myself with my hands alone, I looked at myself in confusion. Blood gouted out of my side, my intestines spilling forth, glistening wetly. Pink meat clung to my exposed white bones. A gouged body. It didn't seem like my own.
嘘
It's a lie. Unable to believe what I was seeing, I looked up at Kozupi. Gazing at me with contemptuous eyes, Kozupi took her D-sword. With her sweet little tongue, slowly, as if she were putting on a display for me, licked my blood off it. Well, unfortunately, it seems that was just a delusion. I view that as the true end of this game, but apparently it was a delusion, so, you know. What can you do? A delusion made me feel sick, but there was no guarantee that it wouldn't become reality. Best end, Assuming the worst, I opened some distance between me and Kozupi. I braced myself to be ready to flee at any moment. As though she hadn't noticed how I felt, Kozupi strode lightly around the store, sword in hand. She made no attempt to conceal her sword from those around us, as if it were perfectly natural for her not to do so. The same as Senna, she too had walked around the dead center of Shibuya, carrying her ginormous D-sword without a thought to spare for how it might inconvenience others. Yes, Takumi, what must it feel like to walk around not having any thought about how your actions could possibly impact or inconvenience those around you? Yeah, can't imagine. She was far too composed about it. Even if Kozupi wasn't a subordinate of Shogun, she was abnormal after all. What I then recalled was the smell of blood. I recalled the spectacle of those fallen, blood-drenched thugs. It's totally natural for such awful people to die. Yup. Had they really died? Nope. Not that there's any reason for them to live. They're so roachy. Roachy. They're cockroaches. I wanted to kill them. I distinctly picked up on what lay in her heart as she said this. There was not a single scrap of malice within her. She simply wanted to retaliate against bad people. I disagree with that statement because you are still standing. So I hard disagree. And she didn't see anything wrong with it. You literally fantasized about assaulting her in class, and you're still standing. I don't know. Shibuya has gotten more and more dangerous lately. Wavelengths, yes. Yesterday I almost got kidnapped by some scary roachy guys, but I bang boom bash them up. This is a game. She too might be twisted in a different way from me. No, it's very close. Nishijo-kun, this way! Still carrying her colossal D-sword, Kozupi started walking off. She was short and slender-armed and didn't look strong at all, but she proceeded with light footsteps, showing no particular signs of feeling the sword's weight. She frequently seemed about to bump into passing customers who displayed goods with the tip of her sword, and I covered my eyes each time. Miraculously, however, she got by without hitting anyone. Our destination turned out to be a staircase. It was dim, unlike the rest of the floor, empty of any human presence. No one had come here. How unexpected for such a desolate space to exist in the famous Raft store, hardly a 5-minute walk away from Shibuya Station. It's not only in Raft. People are never in department store stairwells. It's true. Or like there's the mall near me when I was growing up, which apparently is getting taken down now, had secret stairwells that like security people would use, but like you could just go in there. There was nobody. They were just empty all the time. Like they had the doors like built into the walls, so they kind of didn't look like a door, but like you could just go in. How could she know something like this that I didn't? And she'd moved here only a few weeks ago, and I'd been living in Shibuya for almost 2 years. Well, see, Takumi, you don't go outside your house. You don't learn about the city around you. You only learn about your house. So, you know... Or maybe it's just a constant that, like, people just don't go in those stairwells. Ever since I got to Tokyo, I've walked around Shibuya every single day. Yeah, that's it. And so I found it, a place of rest. Evidently in a positive mood, Kozupi sat down on the stairs. She nonchalantly laid her D-sword close beside her. Since I'd also lost the ability to put up with the ache in my sides, I decided to take a short breather as well. And so, when you look at the scenery or patterns as such, doesn't it seem like something different to you? Elephants or bunnies or lions? What? The most common one is when it looks like a giant salamander. What are you talking about? About D-swords. When I see a pattern or the view outside, it looks like all kinds of shapes to me, like animals and stuff. And so, that's what you mean. Yeah, I've experienced the same thing. And the O front roof as well, when I tried viewing things from that perspective, it was there. The D-sword blending into the scenery. Yeah, ding dong, right answer. First time Kozubi saw it, it was when Ham Pon Pon died. Ham Pon Pon? The hamster I had in elementary school. Anywho, I went to the riverbank to dig a grave for Ham Pon Pon. I forgot a shovel and I couldn't make his grave, and I cried all phew-like. Then I saw the shape of the sword in the sky. After that, I started to see it in all different places. How did you get your hands on it? Man, now I kind of wonder if, like, the sword has been hidden in, like, the background of, like, tons of areas that we just haven't been paying attention to. I wonder if we, like, go back through different, like, areas and levels, and it's just like, oh, there it was, there it was, there it was, there it was. How did you get your hands on it? I found my D-sword, but in the end I hadn't been able to get a hold of it. No matter how much I stretched my hand out, I didn't feel anything and I couldn't grasp it. That would be... All I did was wish. You wished to obtain it, but then even I... Kozubi peeked up at me and shook her head slightly. Wrong. What I wished for was to kill. Eh? Her mental voice rang out clearly in my head. I hadn't mistaken her words. Just now she said it distinctly. To kill. She'd spoken bashfully. The stairs behind Rolf's 5th and 6th floors were very quiet, with only a little bit of background music leaking in from the store interior. Neither of us said a thing. Somebody's breathing resounded loudly in my ears. Was it hers? No, it was mine. The stairs where no one came. A blind spot in the center of the town called Shibuya, a kind of air pocket. I swallowed to moisten my parched throat. And as I wished, I looked up to the sky and I saw the sword again. But I still don't think it was a sword then. I figured it was some kind of big, clashy thing. Yeah, big metal object. When I thought I could use it to kill, boom, I stretched out my hand without knowing it. And I really grasped it. And then what happened? What did he do with it? I killed. I tried to kill, but I couldn't do it. It took all Kozubi's strength to kill him halfway. This girl was broken. Pot meet kettle. Kettle, pot. I'm not broken. I have my sword right here. I could see from the way she gazed lovingly at the D-sword by her side that she placed absolute faith in it. Her heart, too, conveyed the same thing to me. Would I be incapable of obtaining a D-sword unless I became as broken as her? In that case, you should have had your sword before the game even started. Long before. Was I still unbroken in the first place? No. No, don't even think that. No. Well, this sword was unbearably scary. So Orihara Kozue had thought, at least until she came to Tokyo. But now things were different. Now it was very dear to her. It was something priceless. She can read her mind, yep. As long as she had this sword, she had nothing to fear. This sword would protect her. This sword was her heart, her other self. It had already been 3 weeks since she'd come to think that way. Since early age, Kozue had been able to hear the voices of other people's hearts. She no longer remembered when she first became aware of it. When she'd gone crazy, she'd gotten sick. Even at her young age, Kozue thought she mustn't let anyone find out about her ability. And so she concealed it from her parents as well. Because of her power, she was incapable of making friends, and she became distant from her family. Those around her were creeped out by how she was a child with astoundingly good intuition. That explains why she hurt herself when he wanted somebody to take attention off of him, because she knew. Who knows? I don't think he realizes anything. Truly don't think he realizes anything at all. He's just... yeah. Wait, I didn't actually read that one. Even after coming to Shibuya, she feared going to school. She didn't want to meet anyone. Whatever the case, she reckoned they would find her repellent. On the day when she was originally supposed to transfer in, and the day after it, and even the day after that, she wandered around Shibuya instead of going to school. The school must have contacted her parents. Surely they'd realize she was skipping without permission, but neither of them said anything about it to her. Unlike in the boondocks where she lived before, no one found fault with her even if she walked around the city all morning on a weekday. It with her appearance that would make it easy for people to mistake her for a middle school student. Several days after, she began to meander around Shibuya. She found a resting place on the stairs inside Roft, and sitting there while zoning out became part of her daily routine. On that day, too, she left Roft to go home around dusk, after spending close to 4 hours there. Drops of rain fell from the dark gray sky. Kozue didn't have an umbrella with her, but she listlessly walked into the rain without either looking up at the sky or minding the wetness. At this point, something flew into her field of sight. The world is ending. A signboard with a single phrase on top of it, damp with rain, the handwritten letters were blurring. The person holding the board was a lone homeless man, sitting inconspicuously at the side of the road in the midst of the rain. He hung his head, and she couldn't see his expression. Maybe he was dead. That form of his. Seeing it as a mirror image of how she herself had appeared on the stairs at Roft, Kozue stopped her feet. For a brief moment she hesitated. She'd never seen a homeless person before coming to Tokyo, and here was one she had no familiarity with. She even felt disgusted when she looked at him. She worried, what if she spoke to him and he got her involved in something dreadful? But at the time, what surpassed Kozue's anxiety was the drive to kill him. It was an all too sudden urge, but she had the feeling that by following it she might be able to slay her current self as well. Which is why, after some wavering, she sent the man the voice of her heart. Is the world ending? That man's shoulders trembled. So he wasn't dead. He slowly lifted his head. He gazed up at Kozue with the clouded eyes that peeked out from behind his wet bangs. Yes, it's ending. Kozue widened her eyes a little, startled. Not by how he'd confirmed the end of the world, she was surprised by the fact that he'd answered her. She hadn't expected an answer. The people she mentally spoke to either became confused and made themselves think she was hallucinating, or trembled in fear and swiftly fled. Even if she succeeded in communicating with them, it was difficult for them to respond so calmly. That guy's in the mood I bought. Oh, okay. Human thoughts were all too illogical and chaotic. I'm sure that means he's only in this one scene and is not important whatsoever afterwards. Yet this man had answered Kozue's question with a simple sentence, without any change in his expression. The spirit she sensed through his voice was brimming with a deep sorrow. His heart was crying, Kozue thought. You have a sword, do you not? How do you know? Because I know another child like you. Kozue raised her hand above her head and showed him how she drew her D-sword. She pointed its tip at him. You? Oh. Can you see this sword? I'm sure he's unimportant. Yeah. I can't see it. And how do you know it's there? Because I'm a bad person. Sorry. Why are you apologizing? Because it's my fault. Why is it your fault? Because I could only give warnings. Once things were set in motion, I no longer had any method by which to stop them. Then I won't have done anything wrong if I kill you. That sword can become something to either destroy or protect you. Why don't you try remembering? If you look up in the sky, the clouds. If you look at a river, its flow. Those things must be there. It's the same. That sword is always by your side. Look into your own heart. The sword is there. But when I wanted to kill, it appeared in my hands. Isn't the sword there for killing Kozupi and everyone around Kozupi? Negative emotions won't be denied. Everyone possesses them. You aren't unique. It's a question of how you face them. You mustn't avert your eyes. You mustn't deny yourself. The world is a mirror image. The righteousness in your heart can simultaneously become something negative. The reverse is also possible. Whether the world ends or goes on living, you are the ones who can choose. In the end, Kozue didn't kill him. The urge dissipated as he spoke to her. She didn't quite understand what he was saying. Even so, after thinking about it furiously, she reached a single conclusion. This sword was herself. If you looked at it without rejecting it, it would save her. That was why Kozue pure-heartedly came to depend on this sword of hers. Do I gotta click? Okay. I craned my neck as I listened to Kozupi's story. Who on earth was that man? A homeless person with a poster? What Come to think of it, I felt as if I'd seen people like that several times before. Had they all been the same person? What I didn't understand was how the homeless man knew about D-swords. Maybe, unbeknownst to me, D-swords were in truth renowned throughout Japan. Nah, of course not. I scrutinized Kozupi. Her expression was so sincere, or serene, that I had a hard time reconciling it with the disturbing things she told me earlier about killing. She softly glided her fingers over the surface of her D-sword. Now that you mention it, he said something as we parted. You and those like you are special existences. The most special among you is the boy who gave birth to whose eyes are those eyes. Or something like that. I was speechless. What the hell? Do you know what he meant, Nishito-kun?
別に
Not really. Liar. Your heart tells the truth. Just now you thought that it really had something to do with you. Damn it, it's hard to deal with how she picked up on everything. You're making a scary kind of face. Are you the first to think of whose eyes are those eyes? I bit my lip and stood up. I yanked at the tissue stuffed up my nose. My nosebleed had stopped. Kozubi cocked her head to one side and looked up at me. Where are you? I'm going home. Going home? Alright. My side still ached, but I descended to the first floor via the stairs, rather than using the escalator or an elevator. Thanks to that, I managed to avoid the crowd on the way outside. Kozupi trailed diffidently after me, teary-eyed. Did Kozupi say something to make you angry? Ignoring her question, I frantically made the wheels in my head turn. The homeless man Kozupi had met, friend of Shogun. Why had he brought up whose eyes are those eyes? Who was the boy who gave birth to whose eyes are those eyes? Me? No, wrong. I wasn't a special boy or whatever. I wasn't a hero. Yet you can continue to think people are conspiring against you because you're somehow special and worthy of being conspired against. After all, I hadn't been able to attain a D-sword. I was just your average Joe, villager A. No. Yeah, no. Your average Joe doesn't plot and try to do the things you tried to do in that classroom today. I wanted to stay that way. I didn't want to become special. I'd take a pass on having another experience like the one on top of Ofront. And who was that boy? Whose boy or those boy? Loud car, thank you. Loud car at like 1 a.m. The only person who came to mind was the true New Gen criminal, Shogun. It's an insult to Joe, and to Villager A, yeah. Shogun was an old man no matter how I looked at it. But his voice and stature were contrarily close to those of a boy, and he obviously wasn't ordinary. He was special. The message of whose eyes are those eyes, which had appeared in 2 out of the 6 New Gen cases. Words I had often used in my own head. What significance could there be in those thoughtless words? Did the reason why Shogun targeted me with such persistence lie hidden in them? Maybe I ought to search for that homeless guy. He should be somewhere in the city even now, carrying as usual a poster with an incomprehensible message. Look for him and what next? I stopped, and I shook my head as though to deny my own thoughts. What would become of searching for him? On the contrary, it might result in me plunging into danger of my own accord. Maybe he was working for Shogun, and this was a trap to lure me in. What did I plan on doing if I strolled over to meet him and another quest began from it? I was sick of the kind of terror and anguish I'd been through last time. The same thing went for Kozupi. Why had Kozupi now, with this particular timing, begun speaking to me in my mind? Perhaps she, like Yua, had been directed by Shogun to approach me. Going by all the dangerous things she said about killing and half-killing, it was also conceivable that she might be an accomplice to the New Gen murders. After the disturbance at Ofront, Remy had unexpectedly disappeared without contacting me once. Ayase was in the hospital after her failed suicide attempt, and Nanami was safe, but my 2 allies had vanished. Can we just get one direct call Nanami? Call Nanami right now. Was there any guarantee that Remy would come back for me? No. Was it really true that Remy had simply been taking time off from school lately? No. I'd only heard it from Kozupi. I couldn't determine whether or not she was lying. I had the ice-cold sensation that every hair on my body stood on end. When you get down to it, my world was all too empty. There was no foundation for me to believe in. Everything seemed like a lie. Yeah, please. That's a paranoid delusion. Yes, every part of yes. Kozubi stood close behind me. Her mental voice was as carefree as always. She bore her brutal-looking D-sword with both hands. She cast an upward glance at me. I looked away from her. Are you my ally or my enemy? Which one? Have you come to kill me? Kozubi only wanted to kill you after what you said earlier today. Without warning, Kozubi let out a strange cry. When I raised my head, startled, she was waving her hand in some other direction instead of looking at me. Found you, Sena-chan. Sena-chan? Surely not. I followed Kozubi's line of sight, and there, as expected, was... Kozue. Aoi Sena was walking towards us, her D-sword on her shoulder, and an expression that spoke of an endlessly bad mood on her face. I couldn't help assuming a defensive position. Why had Sena appeared here? The coincidence or a planned-out trap? Did these two know each other? Well, clearly. Then had Kozubi called her here? For them to kill me together? I'm telling you, that's a paranoid delusion. What should I believe in? It's the thing about paranoid delusions. As soon as somebody tells you you're having a paranoid delusion, they're like, but you'd just be telling me that because you're part of the conspiracy. It's like, oh my god. Though I'd encountered Sena many times before now, she'd never tried to attack me. That didn't necessarily mean she was my ally. Besides, she scared me. Sena-chan isn't scary. What? Kozubi, please don't speak out of turn like that. Scary? What are you talking about? Unsurprisingly, Sena also seemed to be able to hear Kozue's inner thoughts. Nothing. Taking nary a glance at my state of panic, Kozubi seemed awfully delighted. She faced down as she clung bashfully to the hem of Sena's clothes. We made such an amusing pair that I started to feel like an idiot for being so anxiety-ridden. They almost appeared to be sisters. A strong-hearted, reliable big sister, and the quiet little sister who adored her. And with both of them having small breasts, man, there was nothing to say about it but GJ. Oh no, gotta get a hold of yourself. Kozubi's gonna read your mind again. Yeah. It's not that she's actively seeking to read your thoughts, it's that you're projecting just trash into the world. Besides, I could lose my life if I relaxed my guard. Honestly, do you know what? Wouldn't be surprised if all the bad things happening in here is just because he's just projecting so much negativity from his person that Shibuya is just going insane. He is just so bad and so negative and so garbage that it's impacting and influencing the real world around him. He's just that bad. I wondered what kind of connection lay between them. Did they become acquainted at school? But they were in different grades. I mean, you notice one other person walking around a city with a giant sword that nobody else can notice, and you go, huh, I have one of those. Maybe I should say something. This is something like a bond between fellow sword bearers. Yeah, were both of them working under Shogun? I stood like a cat to prepare myself to run away on a moment's notice. In concrete terms, that means putting my weight on the balls of my feet. By doing this, you could slip into motion with a cat's swiftness. Allegedly. I'd read about it in a manga a long time ago. Yeah, that sounds about right. See, Sena-chan was the first friend Kozuki made after coming to Tokyo, right? Right? Rather than replying, Sena gave me a glare. It made me think she'd slash out at me with a sword, but she didn't do anything. She didn't seem particularly angry at my calling her scary. Kozue, why are you with him? Takumi-chan is my classmate. Takumi-chan? And Takumi-chan can see Kozuki's sword. I know. He's a gigalomantic too. A gigalomaniac, not mantic. Gigalo what? Gigalomaniac. People who can see D-swords. You're one too, Takumi-san. Gigalomaniac? Who decided on that name? If there were a name for it, did it mean this ability wasn't all that rare? Ah, Sena-chan, were you about to go buy a Crunchy-kun? To be fair, that's about my reaction to snack food too. I feel it. I understand. Well, that's... Apparently Kozubi had read Sena's mind. Speaking of which, I'd seen Sena eating a Crunchy-kun before. It was almost winter time. It's kind of impressive that she could eat popsicles outdoors despite the increasing cold. Guess she must really love them. Okie dokie, then let's all go together. Kozue declared in her internal voice, then tugged playfully at Sena's hand and began walking off with her.
Tasty.
Exactly. Hurry up, Takumi-san.
いや、
No, I'd been intended to decline her offer and go straight home, but... Just then, Kozubi went all teary-eyed. Her damp gaze pleaded with me silently. Besides her, Senna fired a biting glare at me. Come along.
ついてお前にもおごってやる
I'll treat you. It would seem that Senna too was weak against Kozupi's weeping attacks. At her urging, I reluctantly went towards a convenience store located close by a police box. After she brought one Crunchy-kun for each of us, the two of them sat against the handrail in front of the police box and bit into theirs. Kozubi really did seem overjoyed. Senna, on the other hand, wore an indifferent look. I was going out of my mind. The police officer on duty was right in front of our eyes. Despite that, he showed zero indication of paying any attention to the two girls who were presently breaking the swords and firearms control law. He was a policeman, for Pete's sake. He could obviously see us, and he didn't pay them any heed, much less arrest them. Not gonna eat? When Kozubi pointed it out, I helplessly bit into my Crunchy-kun. The gazes of those around us bothered me. Senna and Kozubi were cute. The spectacle of two cute, flat-chested sisters, together with a creepy otaku. She can hear all of this. You scumbag. And on top of that, with all of us eating Crunchy-kuns under the cold open sky was so surreal, we couldn't avoid standing out. Was I being overly self-conscious? Yes. I constantly heard taunting snickers. A hallucination? Was it just Kozubi laughing? I didn't want to be conspicuous. I didn't want anyone to look at me. My fear of others' gazes. I should have put on a hat or something. In any case, I wanted to get out of here ASAP. As I desperately kept on eating my Crunchy-kun with that goal in mind, my body went chilly. This was totally going to give me diarrhea. What? I wondered if the two of them weren't cold.
で、小杖
One of those lines is not like the others. So, Kozue, why are you with him? He's Takumi-san, not him. Some bad people were bullying Takumi-san and he fell down, so Kozubi helped tend to him. He tended to me?
ディソードを使
Did
った
you use her D-sword? I wanted to kill them, a bang slash. Kozubi appeared to be gesturing to illustrate what she was saying. Also, hey Mitz, how's it going? Welcome to Viper Lane to the chat. Brain freeze, yeah, brain freeze, maybe. That would make some sense. But because her enormous D-sword occupied her left hand, she had to wave her spare hand around. But that one was, of course, holding her Crunchy-kun. Kozubi's Crunchy-kun, from which she had only taken a single bite, flew away in a perfect arc. It hit the middle of the road and splattered. I mean, you had that coming. Kozue stared at its remnants, looking as if she were about to burst out
うかつな
crying.
真似は避けろと
Told you not to do anything foolish. Oh, I'm sorry. The leftover boogeyman is gonna get me.
アイスのことじゃない
Talking about your D-sword,
デ
not
ィ
the
ソードのこと
popsicle.
だ
Senna handed Kozubi the Crunchy-kun she'd been eating. Apparently she was giving it to her. As she took it, Kozubi went all shy and bowed her head. To think that Senna could be so kind, how unexpected. But bad people have gotta play a punishment game. Who was it? Who would envelop these pricks in a bloodbath? Kozubi, perhaps? Or me? Takumi-san. Senna-chan knows everything. Senna-chan told me it was called a D-sword. And what else? Real Buta? Buta?
リアルブート
Real boot? Ah, yes. What was it? I'd never heard those words before. The same was true of that gigolo whatever from before. No one should be able to see a sword if it hasn't been real booted, but Senna-chan saw mine. Senna-chan was the first person I ever met who could see D-swords. Back then, I thought, whoa, and I asked her why she could see it. And she said it was because she's a gigolomaniac.
ギガロマニアックス
Gigolomaniacs, what are they? I told you before, people who can see the swords. Now, in greater detail, like the principle of how it
ディラック
works?
の海に干渉できる
Those who possess the ability to interfere with the Dyrrhic Sea.
それがギガロマ
That's what
ニアックス
gigolomaniacs are. Yes, that answers my question perfectly. Senna answered instead.
ディラックの
Dyrrhic Sea? Senna cast a scornful glance at me as I tilted my head. Why are you looking at me like that? Contrary to appearances, I'm pretty damn smart. Sure. I sort of remembered something about the Dirac Sea being a concept in quantum
負の
mechanics.
エネルギーでいっぱいに満たされた
An
観測不能の
unobservable
境目
interface filled with negative energy or something, was it?
大雑把に言えば
To put it
そん
broadly,
な様子をし
yes.
て
These swords are the terminals that permit interference with it.
ディラックの
Think of them as the
海に突っ込ん
tip
だ
of a
パイ
pipe
プの先端
stuck
と
in the
考え
Dirac
ディラ
Sea.
ックの海とつながっているから
Since they're connected to the Dirac Sea, these swords, too, are composed of
無限に
negative
崩壊
matter.
している存在
They're an
に
existence that infinitely collapses in on itself,
普段
which is why
普通の
ordinary
人間に
people
は
can
触れ
neither
ること
touch
も
nor
見る
see
ことも
them,
できない
and there's something like a
妄想の
delusion.
理想度こそ
These
あらゆ
D
る
swords
リア
serve
ル
the
ブードの
function
ため
of
の
a
ショートカッ
shortcut
ト
to
的
every
役割を果た
possible
す
form of real booting. They're, yeah, I
理想
understood
度
like
と
some
ディ
of
ラッ
that.
クの海とのチャ
When
ネ
you
ルを
enlarge
大
the
きくする
channel
と
between your D sword and the Dirac
ディラッ
Sea,
ク方程式の空港理論によって
according to the
中性
Dirac
成分
equation's whole theory, pair production occurs, leading to the formation of particles and
この粒
antiparticles.
子がギガ
These
ロマニアック
particles
ス
are
が
the
生み出す
delusions
妄想
given rise to by
世界にとっての
gigalomaniacs,
エラー
and the rest of the world, they are errors.
そのエラーを現実とす
To
るには
make these errors part of reality, all you need to do is to send the created particles into somebody's dead spots.
粒子は
Particles are
即座に電気信号
instantly
に変換
converted
さ
to electrical
れ周囲の
signals,
人間に共通
and
の
through the
認識
shared recognition of nearby humans to
現
become
実として
reality.
成立する
So they were talking about the dead spots in the eyes before that shadowy organization. So to make these errors part of reality, all you need to do is send the created particles. So the thing that gets me is that apparently you make things real by making enough people see them that enough people go, there's a flower pot there, that there's a flower pot there. It's not, you're not making something appear, you're making enough people go, hey, didn't I just see a flower pot out of the corner of my eye? And then there is one, because enough people thought they saw one, which is something. The rest of it was techno mumbo jumbo, but that bit worked with what they said earlier.
逆に消したいときは
When you want to erase them, on the other hand, you need to send antiparticles into the dead spot where you sent the original particles, thereby leading to a mutual annihilation. That bit I get. Oh no, I guess there was nothing there after all, so there's nothing there. Come to think of it, in the past Senna had said,
世界の仕組み
everything about how the world operates can be explained by three numbers, 0, 1, and negative 1.
そのマイナ
These
ス
swords are a
値を生み出す
shortcut for
ショートカット
producing that negative 1. My head was getting all tangled up here. Yeah, I feel ya.
周囲の人間
What do you mean by
共通
how
の認識となる
people's
と
shared recognitions
妄想が
makes delusions
例え
real?
ば
Take the Crunchy-kun you're currently holding, for example. How does it appear to you?
どう
How? It's a blue
そ
popsicle.
の水色のアイ
Can
ス
you
は
prove that this
本
blue
当に現
popsicle
実
is
だと
truly
証明
part
で
of
きる
reality? A Crunchy-kun was a Crunchy-kun, wasn't it? You could tell with a glance. And it'd be cold if you ate it. I thought that sort of thing was obvious, but
人は目
when
で見た
people's
ものを
brains
脳が認
recognize
識
what they
して
see with
初め
their
て
eyes,
それが
that's
水
when
色
they are
のアイス
first
と
able
理
to
解できる
comprehend it as a blue
で
popsicle.
も脳
It's
が
also
本人の
possible
意
for your
識しな
brain
い
to
ままで
tell
嘘をついてい
lies
る
without
可能
you
性
being
だって
conscious of
脳
it.
が生み出した
Maybe it's a
自分一人
delusion
だけで
produced by
そう
your
思い込ん
brain,
でい
which
る
can
妄想
alone
かも
have
しれ
made
ない
yourself think it's really there.
じゃあどうやって
Then
現
how can
実
you
だって
prove
証
reality
明
is
可能
real? If other people observe that which you're holding is a blue popsicle, it attains the shared recognition of 2 or more human beings. It ceases to be your solitary delusion.
妄想を現実にするとき
When you're making delusions
それを
real,
逆説的に捉え
perceive
る
that in paradoxical terms. In short, if you coercively showed your solitary delusions, the particles formed by your D-sword, to the people in your surroundings, they would become real. And did I have that ability as well? Way over Kozupi's head. Anyway, normal people can't see my sword. That's the takeaway, clearly. Kozupi gave Senna her Crunchy-kun back, then tripped out into the road. Indirect. Yeah. She stood in front of the people walking along the street, and all of a sudden, who knows what she was thinking, started taking huge swings with her D-sword. Stop! I covered my eyes. She'd finally shown her true colors. In truth, she'd been a heinous murderer all along. The road would now be a sea of blood. If someone were cut down by that colossal sword, their torso would be divided straight in two. Kozupi was going to get caught red-handed. After all, the police box was right beside us. The police officer would clearly witness it. Takumi-san, it's not ending up that way, you know. I wondered why it was so quiet, even though people were getting slashed up by a sword in the middle of Shibuya in broad daylight. No one was screaming. I didn't hear the policeman yelling either. I gradually opened my eyes. nothing had happened. Who would have thought? Kozubi continued swinging her gigantic sword around, although she seemed a bit embarrassed. It was clearly hitting passers-by, the roadside fence, the ground, and so forth, yet nothing happened. She didn't cut anything. For that matter, her sword was passing cleanly through things, almost as if they were illusions. No, wrong. It's the reverse. The sword itself had no substance. The people walking in the area didn't stir whatsoever. They couldn't see her sword, but they still saw, like, a high school girl just flailing around wildly in the middle of a street. But I guess it's a big city. That's just how it is. These swords are delusionary swords. Now that she mentioned it, Ayase had said something similar before. Like, the swords only appear in the eyes of those with the power? Besides me, Sana let out a weary sigh and bit her crunchy-kun. Now, that D-sword is no more than an error Kozue created. It hasn't achieved the shared recognition of those in the area. If I real booted it, everyone would be able to see it. Real boot. What was this act of sending particles into people's dead spots? Which wasn't to say I understood what a dead spot was. It lets you slash and boom crash too. Please explain it with something easier to understand than sound effects. That's why it was captured on the videotape. For it to actually impact a real object, you have to make it a visible real object. So it can be caught on video, which is how Bond got to see it, because it was on tape. But the other officer didn't see it, right? The security guy didn't see it. So I still have questions. But I grasped the basic nuances of what she meant. Slash probably signified cutting with her sword. Then would boom crash be hitting? What exactly was she cutting and hitting? Did Kozubi do such frightening things? Me too. Did I too possess a power like that? No, I'm not unique. I'm not a gigglomantic. Because after all, I'd failed to acquire a D-sword. Maybe? Maybe. It is possible, but I'd also wonder why, like, clearly there are people around this town that do not hide it at all, and he'd be like, that's illegal. I'm a cop. I'm gonna go say something. Because after all, I'd failed to acquire a D-sword. You saw your sword, right? That means you'll get it sooner or later, Takumi-san. It's impossible. It had been impossible even in O-Front. I'd seen the sword, but I hadn't understood how to take hold of it. If you asked about how to get your hands on it, Kozupu put a finger in her mouth and looked at Senna. Senna sighed again. When your biorhythms rise, leading to the excessive secretion of dopamine in the neurons of your mind-brain limbic system, your D-sword will appear. Depending on the person, it could be when they're in a hazardous situation, or when they're agitated or sad, or filled with hate, or laughing. The higher the amount of dopamine produced, the easier it becomes to observe. There you have it, Takumi-san. I mean, controversial take. Heroin. Fire up those dopamine receptors real fast, grab that sword. Yeah, you'll be addicted to heroin, but you'll have a D-sword. You know, gotta wait it out. The breadth of Sarah's knowledge was apparent. Maybe she was unbelievably intelligent. Use it to calm down? Maybe. More than that, she knew so much about it that she practically came across as a gigglomantic scholar or something. She can't be a scholar. She doesn't have a book or a fairy with her. Lies. First of all, even if you searched all through Japan, you'd have a hard time finding a high school girl capable of discussing such complex theories and technical terminology off the top of her head. Where on earth had she studied this? Why were such mysterious personages gathering around me? Somebody show me the answer. I'm too tired of pondering it. It revolted me to remain in this state of half-understanding. I didn't feel like researching the rest myself. Because, come on, everyone, none of them are normal. Embracing my bitter thoughts, I took one last mouthful of my melting crunchy-kun. One. The popsicle stick was carved with the word winner. Kozubi came back and took a look at my hand. Takumi-san, you're amazing. You have impressive luck. I would disagree with that statement. Senna-chan wanted to be a winner too, so she's jealous. I thought no such thing. I don't think you can fool Kozubi that easily. After all, she'll just read everything you're thinking. When Senna-chan eats crunchy-kun, she's always so excited, wondering if she's going to be a winner. How many times have you gotten one?
1割3分の何
13.7% of the time. So she really had it down. Did she recalculate it every time she ate one? Senna too had finished eating her Crunchy-kun. She stared intently at the remaining stick, then let out a small snort. Excuse me. She'd drawn a blank, huh? Going by her face.
あの
If you'd like it, here. Well, we've got another choice. For a popsicle stick, the most important thing in this universe is a winning popsicle stick. And of course the approval of our peers. Peers. Yep. Going down that red path. I tentatively held the winning stick towards her. I have no intention of accepting charity. I'm only testing my own possibilities.
でも
But your heart is saying you want it. Of course.
あげます
I'll give it to you.
僕
I don't eat popsicles much anyway. Though I'd spoken out of kindness of my heart, Senna gave me a single glance and immediately proceeded to ignore my suggestion. And for some reason she held her own popsicle stick out to me. Moreover, she offered no explanation. It doesn't exactly make me happy to be given a blank popsicle stick. Maybe she was ordering me to throw it away in the convenience store trash can? With her, such a thing more than conceivable. Senna definitely had a bunch of weak-willed younger brothers, and she probably ordered them around all the time. More delusions we got, okay. Making a fool of me, but things might get scary if I disobeyed her, so I bit my lip and unwillingly took it from her. Win, said Senna, her line of sight fixed on the sky that peeped down from the gaps between buildings. I sighed, took a nonchalant glance at the losing stick, and sucked in my breath. Whose eyes are those eyes? What was this?
先週出た
It came out last week, a limited edition Shibuya
た
item.
だの当たりより価
It
値
has
が
greater worth than a regular win. Senna explained with a satisfied expression. Maybe this had made her proud of herself. So I win.
私の勝ち
What were we competing over, anyway? Anyway, I didn't eat a winning stick created in such poor taste. I felt like snapping the damn stick in half, but I sucked it up and handed the stick back to
それ
Senna.
よりお前
More importantly, you... He's Takumi-san.
匠さんなのか
Takumi-san, are you?
違う
Wait,
シャ
no!
ンは
You don't have to add on Shan. Your name? I felt like I told her before, but apparently she'd forgotten. She's got way more important things in her life. Any human being has more important things in their life than remembering this bozo's name. Nishijo
だっ
Takumi.
たら
Nishijo then. Don't create any more errors. Huh? Why? The sword is your own heart. You mustn't deny it. My sword saved me, you know? Saved her, huh? What had happened to in Kozupi's past? It also bothered me that she had mentioned wishing to
妄
kill.
想を現実にする
The action of turning delusions into reality brings with it certain
粒子と共
risks.
に追生成され
The
る反粒子
antiparticles that form together with particles in pair production become stocked up in your D-sword, but we can't handle our D-sword yet, so...
数学的に言えば
Mathematically speaking,
過去へ向かうもの
antiparticles are that which lead towards the
ストック
past.
すればするほど
Because of this, the more of them Megalomaniac stocks up, the greater the consequential lag between him and present conditions.
やがてその矛盾により存在としての自己
At
崩
least
壊へ
these contradictions will lead him towards existential self-destruction. You sure you're speaking Japanese? Then he must have made a ton of errors, because he is absolutely sending himself towards existential
小
self-destruction.
杖も
Kozue,
あまりディソー
you
ドを出
too.
すのをやめろ
Stop drawing your D-sword
普通に
frequently.
生活していきたい
We see her with her sword over her shoulder all the time. Heed my warning if you want to carry out an ordinary lifestyle.
お前たち
This
の
has to
命
do
に
with
関わる
whether
話だ
both of you live or die. Senna didn't appear to be saying it as a joke. She wasn't the type to joke
ま
around.
してや西条
Furthermore,
お前は
Nishijo,
ディソードなしでリ
you
アルビー
real
トして
booted without a D-sword.
本来
That ought to be
そんなこと
fundamentally
できるなか
impossible.
海には
Because we're able to interfere with the direct sea by using D-swords as our conduit.
お前は普通じゃない
You aren't ordinary.
奴らに目をつけられてもおかしくない
Wouldn't be surprising if you caught their eye.
リ
Who's
ガロマニア
they?
ックスの力を
Those who are
悪用
trying
し
to
ようとしている
abuse the power of
連中
Gigalomaniacs.
それっ
Do you
て
mean
知ら
Shogun?
ない
Don't know.
誰だそれ
Who's that? Kozupi, is Senna lying? Nope.
西条
Nishijo, who is
将
Shogun?
軍と
The chill in her voice made me shudder.
誰だ
Naturally, I couldn't bring myself to meet her eyes. She seized my shirt front. It became hard to breathe. Why was she so violent? Had I done anything
そい
wrong?
つは
Is he a man in his 40s?
違うよ
No, he's a little old man. Senna let me go up
そいつも
once
ギガロマニアッ
and
クス
see a gigglomaniac.
わからない
I don't know.
でもニ
But he's the true new gen criminal. The true criminal, you say? Senna laid a finger against her chin and lapsed into thought. Volatile atmosphere. Unidentifiable anxiety. Senna knew something. What the heck was it? Who were the people trying to abuse the power of gigglomaniacs? Ah, I know. Let's take a commemorative photo. All three of us. See, over there. Kozupi abruptly piped up in a cheery voice, pointing at something. It was... Photo booth. The arcade next to the police box. If we were to take a commemorative photo there, it would inevitably end up... This is the first time we see his full face, isn't it? This is the first time we ever see his full face. He's always had his eyes in shadow before, right? Yep, turned out like this. It's just weird, like, he's not just the person we see, like, through his eyes. Whose eyes are those? They're his! They're his! Come on, Takupi-san, in the middle!
いやちょ
No,
僕は
wait, Senna-san, you're not allowed to look away. I don't care for this sort of... It's Kozupi's first time, too, but... She knows what she's doing. Obeying the on-screen instructions, Kozupi kept pressing the buttons without obtaining our consent. Before Senna and I had time to mentally prepare ourselves, a voice came out of the screen. Okay, strike a pose. Click. Their D-swords didn't show up in the photographs we took. It's so weird. Oh, alrighty then. Bye-bye. See you tomorrow. If I go to school tomorrow. Kozupi waved her hand a little shyly, then vanished in the direction of the station's turnstiles. Senna and I watched her go. If possible, I didn't want to be left alone with Senna. Except she didn't seem to be interested in heading home. Did she plan on wandering around the area again, as she usually did? I'd have liked to leave at once, but beforehand there was just one thing I wanted to ask the Gigglomaniac's PhD, no matter what. Even if I called out to her, Senna retained her ill-humored expression. It had been better when Kozupi was here, but she remained off-putting. Heart-thumping, I asked my question, deciding to assume my voice had reached her.
コズピー
Is
の
Kozupi's inner voice part of her power as a Gigglomaniac too? I didn't expect her to give me an answer. Whatever the case, I figured it would end with her going heh and laughing at me. Senna cast a glance at me, then shifted her eyes to the Jumbotron by the pedestrian scramble.
心の声は
The voice of one's heart is, so to speak, a delusion. She responded thus. All Kozue does is send her voice into other people's dead spots. The mechanism isn't any different from what I explained previously. The particles she transmits are converted to sound, not images. It's the same as with the telephone. And when Kozue sent you the delusion of her mental voice, a local shared recognition was born between the two of you. It seems as if you're conversing via telepathy, but it's utterly different.
だったらぼ
If so, how did my inner voice reach
コズピーに
Kozupi?
届いたの
I myself hadn't delivered any delusions to Kozupi's dead spots. If that were the case, Kozupi should only have been able to send a one-way transmission. Yet we'd carried out a successful conversation with the voices of our hearts. Gigglomaniacs can see the delusions of others. Kozue is especially gifted in this area. Oh, jeez. No. So not only could she, like, read our thoughts, she saw that. Not just like, oh, he's thinking about blah, or like the words he was thinking. She saw... yeah. And she was still like, I want to be friends with this guy. One could also say that she's all but forcibly made to see the delusions expelled by others. Seeing delusions, could somebody really do that? I couldn't. You see so many of your own delusions, you don't need to see any others. Even if you could, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. You'd still think they were all just yours. So I don't think I was a gigglomaniac. With a sudden distant look in her eyes, Senna transferred her line of sight from the Jumbotron to the crowd walking in the pedestrian scramble. No matter who they are, those who end up as gigglomaniacs have become broken at least once in the past. Or, in Takumi's case, every like 5 minutes. Just broken.
壊れたって
He just keeps breaking himself. But broken? What breaks? The heart. Before she came to Tokyo, they drove Kozue into a corner and broke her heart. And Senna began speaking of what Kozupi had experienced before she transferred. Senna said she had seen it, like a film, the first time she and Kozupi met. Since early age, Kozue had possessed a unique predisposition to see into others' hearts. Taki was by far the most broken. Even so, she faced this ability in her own way, and somehow she had managed to lead a peaceful lifestyle by concealing it from other people. The changes began with mirrors. Once she entered high school, Kozue began to frequently spot the reflection of mirrors as she went about her everyday life. At first, she thought it was a mere coincidence. It happened only about once or twice a day. But as the months went on, that frequency gradually increased. She would encounter people in positions of mirrors over 10 times per day. Those encounters themselves were nothing special. She saw people passing her on the road carrying mirrors, or students in the same grade as her fixing their makeup in the bathroom, nothing more. But whether it was a coincidence or something intentional, the reflections in the mirrors almost inevitably struck her eyes. At least those who bore the mirrors, all of them, began speaking to her in voices containing insinuating laughter. They called out to Kozue in her art, asking, "Who are you?" In her classroom, in the school building, on the way to school, while she was shopping, such people appeared wherever she went. That's gotta be disturbing as hell. That's gotta be disturbing. It wasn't any particular person. On the contrary, there were different people each time. But to Kozue, everyone holding a mirror began to seem suspicious. Everyone laughing insinuatingly began to seem suspicious. At last she began to have the hallucination, wow, I can English, that even those without mirrors were asking her, "Who are you?" She became borderline neurotic, and those internal voices clung to the depths of her ears, refusing to leave. One day, Kozue faced a mirror reflecting her and murmured, "Who are you?" The instant she spoke these words, Kozue became afraid of no longer knowing who she was. The girl with the same face as her called to her from beyond the mirror. "Who are you?" Ever since she ceased speaking, she became unable to look at mirrors. Despite that, the demands of "Who are you?" continued to reach her. She could no longer even tell whose inner voice it was. A broken fax machine, incapable of blocking incoming transmissions. Considering the conditions set by her unique predisposition to hear the voices of other people's hearts, there was nothing she could do about it. Kozue's heart went to pieces. One day, after she became a sophomore, during after-class cleaning, 3 sophomore girls whispered something to each other while using hand mirrors to put on makeup in the classroom. Mirrors and insinuating laughter. And the calls of "Who are you?" she thus came to hear. Were they actually the inner voices of her 3 classmates, or else one of Kozue's oral hallucinations? She didn't care which. As Kozue's eyes quivered in terror, a mirror's reflection entered them. For a second, her field of sight went bright. Was it on purpose or a coincidence? She didn't care which. Kozue's heart, which had been strained for over a year, broke with the sound of something crushing. Before she knew it, she was screaming, rather shrieking. Her instinctive desire to kill controlled her. For the first time, she seized the D-sword she could see at the edge of her field of sight. She attacked her 3 classmates. With her real-booted D-sword, she severed their mirror-holding right hands in an instant. Right hands, you say? Severed right hands. Seemed to be a theme. According to my minimum attendance shift chart, today wasn't a school-going day. I had one goal in going to school, all the same. To see Remy. Surely my juvie classmates would taunt me about this and that today as well. That was tough enough, but when you weighed it against the possibility of being able to meet Remy, I could still put up with it. I recalled yesterday's events as I passed through the school gate. Senna had emphasized her warning as we parted. Yeah, right hands. If you venture any deeper into this, whether or not you desire it, you'll need a will strong enough to transform evil to good. I'm pretty sure he has a will barely strong enough to just do evil. If you come at it half-heartedly, you'll only be devoured by your delusions. Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure he's long past that, actually. Because I didn't want to get caught up in anything dangerous seeming, I hadn't asked her anything more. There's no hope, yeah. In any case, I couldn't get my hands on a D-sword no matter how hard I tried. I'm no hero. I'm only a waste of space who can't even do a decent job of protecting his own little sister. Except, there remained the possibility that Shogun might appear before me again. Apparently he was targeting me as if we were playing a game, so the next quest might begin at his whim anytime. That terrified me. Should. Even my attempts to acquire a D-sword had originally been for the sake of protecting myself from Shogun. Swordless, how could I escape his evil grasp? If Remy were here with me, but it bothered me that Remy was taking time off school. What would I do if, this time around, Remy were taken hostage the way Nanami had been? What if I had a device in my pocket at this exact moment that would allow me to at least attempt to contact Remy and give her the chance to say, hey, cool, just haven't been really feeling well. I'm not out of school right now. Like, we, the players, know, yeah, that's clearly not what's going on. But he doesn't. He could call her. He could try. He could attempt. But he's just so dependent on her showing up behind him and comforting him. He's just like, no, she's gone. Was there anyone around who seemed likely to save me? Call your sister, too. She's been nothing but trying to be nice to you forever. The candidates would have to be those with D-swords. Ayase was injured, so that took her out of the running. I didn't think Senna would help me. Why did Ayase do that, too? It seems very out of character for what little we know of her character. To just be like, yep, jumping off the roof now, bye. It seems very weird. I thought it was kind of tied in with the earthquake and stuff, just the day of weirdness. And it still might be. And Kozupi was a little, no, considerably weird. Face lowered, I entered my classroom. Before I get to my seat, I took one look around the room. First, Remy's seat, empty. Was she absent today too? Was she just skipping? Insecurity flickered through me. I wanted to meet with her. I wanted to see her cheerful face. Next, Kozupi's seat. Seated, she faced down and shrunk into herself. When I remembered the story Senna had told me yesterday, it made sense that Kozupi always carried herself this way. Good morning, Takumi-san. And it's gotta be weird to have a loud, joyous conversation in the middle of a loud classroom like that. Like, good morning, Kozupi. Our eyes didn't meet, but we internally exchanged morning greetings. The delinquent girls watched me, grinning. It was the day after yesterday. I wouldn't yet be able to peel off the label of self-proclaimed psychic boy who's actually an otaku freak and made an idiot of himself on TV. The male thugs appeared not to have arrived yet. They often skipped our first period class, which was convenient for me. I sat down, and that voice called my name. Good morning, Taku. Startled, I hastily raised my head. Remy stood right before my eyes. Okay. She seemed faintly bashful as she gave me a little wave. Don't forget, any lewd thoughts you think about her are being overheard by another. Long time no see. Remy, she wasn't an illusion. She had a definitive presence. She was breathing. Her hair stirred. She was blinking. She was there. She was here. Something burned in the depths of my nose. I was assaulted by a squeezing sensation in my chest. I was about to weep. Half standing in my chair, I went motionless, head hanging. I'm so glad I'd be able to see her again. Whoa, Taku, what's wrong? Are you crying? I frantically shook my head. If the juvies nearby knew I'd cried here, they'd torment me again. I told myself I shouldn't cry, but the tears kept overflowing. I get it. You're happy to be reunited with me, right? I like how Takumi kind of believes pretty much everything that the other D-sword users are saying, except for the, hey, you really shouldn't, like, trust her and hang around with her. Yeah. He's like, Remy, she'd say, yeah. Just kidding. Maybe that was a little too self-conscious of me. Remy said in a bright, joking tone, and all I could do in response was go on shaking my head desperately. Still more, I couldn't look at her face properly. If I did, I'd definitely start bawling. That's when someone tapped me on the back. Hey, Taku. It was Mishimi-kun, looking ill at ease. The hand he patted me with was considerably more restrained than it used to be. Hugs greater than warnings from everyone else, Viper. True. To be fair, I've been in less than ideal relationships and not necessarily listened to people being like, hey, by the way, that's not great. I feel like hindsight's 2020, and while I joke at him now, it's good and fun to dunk on Takumi. It's quite often difficult to see things from the inside. And when people from the outside tell you these things, it can be very easy to be like, no, that's not the case. But in this case, even though I just said those words, we're going to continue to dunk on Takumi because he's Takumi. So, even if he makes a mistake that normal, average human beings would easily make, it's worse because he's Takumi. Yeah, true. Even though he'd ignored me before, I wondered why he was being nice enough to talk to me again. Talking with me would definitely bring misfortune on him. He'd end up being the target of the class's juvie's bullying. Right, it would be better for them. Neither Remy nor Misumi-kun put up with creepy otaku like me. When I held my silence, Misumi-kun put on a forced smile. Dark of you, being all broody so early in the morning. Well, but I know you're that type of guy. Those words of his sounded harsh, but I didn't sense anything like sarcasm or hostility in them. If you asked how I knew, it's because he'd always said such things to me. You say that, Daichin, but it's too early in the morning for you to be so uselessly breezy. Don't call it useless. You come to school for the first time in a while and this is what I get? Then, false-seeming breeziness. Hey, Taku, what do you think how she's putting things? Yeah. I nodded ambiguously. Somehow, my tears had stopped. The usual scene lay before me. Neither of them acted concerned by the fact that my position in class was becoming something very bad. Come to think of it, did you hear about Kishimoto? They say she's still hospitalized. She wasn't injured much, but apparently she got it pretty bad psychologically. Listen up, Taku. The fastest way to get a girl is to be nice to her in her moment of weakness. That sounds massively manipulative, which is why I'm seriously thinking about visiting Kishimoto in the hospital. Daichin, you're the worst. Boo-hoo. This time your girlfriend really is gonna stab you, you know? I'm just paying a visit. Ain't nothing to be ashamed of. That's different from what you were saying a few seconds ago before. Speaking of which, Taku, you know Kishimoto. Won't you come with me? It was a typical topic for Misumi-kun, sure enough, but because I'd been positive he would ask me about psychic powers or something, it startled me. Misumi-kun kept chatting afterwards as well. It was the same as every time before now, with Misumi-kun rattling on by himself, Remy occasionally jumping in to poke fun at him, and me only grunting vaguely. I can totally see why they hang out with him. When two people have a conversation and the third person is just like, yeah. But it's being the same as before made me happy. That's a not evil face, standing at the windowsill of the presidential office located on the very top floor of the Nozomi Group company's headquarters. Norase Genichi lit a cigarette. The Nozomi Group, a large enterprise with numerous subsidiaries which carried out its business with ministerial authority from the government. Its subsidiaries had started up businesses in a variety of fields, from the sale of clothing and groceries to trading in the I can't English tonight for some reason. To trading in the capacity of a distributor of imports, and they had accomplished measurable achievements. Norase, who stood at the top of the group and reigned over it, gazed down at the view he could see from his personal castle. Palace. Clearly, we had to go deeper. His consciousness, however, was not turned towards the scenery. While wearing a mocking smile in his mouth, he tapped the floor irritatedly with his toes countless times. Good lord, it's a hassle to deal with old men. We're at the castle, clearly. I don't know why my back just won't get comfy tonight. Yeah. Give me this way, don't you think? They're too cowardly. Although you could also say that it's what has enabled me to climb this far. I'm bored to death of both using them and undercutting them. Reality is a sad thing indeed. We can't afford to underestimate the influence of the Committee of 300. Yet someday soon, that system too will collapse. The structures controlling the world will be recombined. Are you looking forward to it? As well. It took quite some time to come this far. Already 5 years since we launched Project Noah.
立ち上げからすでに
Norosei walked up to his desk. The top of his solid-looking... This is some really, like shocking, like, kind of happy music for this. Carved from natural oak. See, that's why you know it's not a good desk. It's a real, good, solid desk. Something you'd really be proud of. Could only possibly be made and carved of the perfect form that is mahogany. Had little of the decorative about it, and was burdened only with office-like items. Except there was one thing that gave off a different color from the others, and it had tumbled carelessly towards the edge. Norosei, picking up that green, bizarrely designed mascot character. Is Garofragi about to turn plot relevant? So help me. Is Garofragi about to turn plot relevant? He gave it a bored glance and tossed it in the wastebasket. Oh, maybe not. Now then. His narrowed eyes swung towards the room's dim interior. The moonlight from the window didn't reach the depths of the room. A faint human presence could be found there. I would never have dreamed you were a gigalomaniac. It would seem that even God has allied himself with me. He'll permit me to take a sample from you. What? There's no need to be afraid. I'm a former doctor. I'm the sort who simply can't bring himself to proceed without informed consent. He definitely seems the type to have informed consent. Yeah, sure. Besides, the hardware for Noah 2 has already been completed. All that remains is the software. And for that, we need many samples from you gigalomaniacs. To put it more accurately, it's a code sample related to your NA synapses, an active sample of the portion with a role to give your orders to your brain. There are individual discrepancies when it comes to taking code samples. In powerful gigalomaniacs, it causes the NA synapses to become even more active, increasing their ranges in the brain. Generally speaking, only 1/10 of the human brain gets put to use. No, that's false. Just not true. Okay. But gigalomaniacs are different. We know they also make use of the remaining 9/10. Inside of a gigalomaniac's head is truly fascinating. Samples of them serve the function of a kind of CPU for Noah 2. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Metal Lupo is plot relevant, so who knows? The more samples, the more Noah 2's capabilities will approach those of the real gigalomaniacs, before at last surpassing them. Will you offer your consent? So who's the person he's talking to, I wonder? Very well. Norosei nodded in satisfaction and, blowing out smoke, returned his gaze to the scenery beyond the window. Viewed up close, Shibuya's nightscape was vulgarity itself. What? And brought Norosei nothing but unpleasant feelings. However, he usually thought to himself that he'd given passing marks to the view from somewhat separated places. Oh, he doesn't like the people or the places or the individual spots, but the cityscape is pretty. That's okay. But then, this nightscape would soon become something one could never see again, as a result of the final experiment performed in his Project Noah. The day of the world's rebirth draws near. Oh. Garofragi's plot relevant. Garofragi's a gigalomaniac. Lunch break. I always skipped lunch because I didn't want to eat by myself in the classroom. I had no one to eat together with. Lately, Remy had been inviting me to eat with her, but as you might well imagine, I became embarrassed and ended up refusing. Which was why, when we reached the lunch break, I left the classroom and retreated to a place where I could find peace. At times it was the library, and at times it was the courtyard. But after the previously mentioned disturbance, everyone in the school had come to recognize my face, and I couldn't calm down no matter where I went. Gazes stabbing into me without mercy, sneers, insults thrown my way. Today, too, I walked around school. It had the opposite effect of exposing me to even more disparagement, and when I thought I had no other option but to flee to the bathroom, I spotted Nanami from behind the passage, leading to the freshman building. Nanami's alive. Okay. She appeared to be walking to her classroom alone. Come to think of it, I hadn't spoken to Nanami once since that incident, which makes you a big fool. I'd avoided bumping heads with her all week long. because I hadn't known what kind of expression to make when I saw her. Yeah, sure, okay, then call her on the phone. I was the worst kind of brother. Correct! One who had prioritized my own life over hers. It was no more than a miracle that Nanami had been safely released. I hadn't done a thing. That's the back of her school uniform? It's just weirdly, like, lit, and it makes it look like it's, like, glowing white, but, like, that's definitely, like, her school blazer just from the back. My first reaction was the same thing, like, what's going on? Like, I absolutely thought the same thing. It's weirdly lit. Also tired. Maybe Shogun had told Nanami it was my fault he'd abducted her. If so, she'd definitely be furious at me. She'd disdain me, and maybe she wouldn't listen to me. That was why I didn't have the courage to go see her. But now that I'd spied her like this, of all times, I started to get worried. He hadn't done anything unthinkable to her, had he? He hadn't hurt her in some way, had he? Like you were going to hurt your classmates, huh? Huh? Oh, now you're worried about people. Okay. She wasn't psychologically wounded, was she? Oh, like you were about to psychologically wound your classmates, huh? Huh? Okay. Yep, that's a hand. For a second, memories of that hand revived in the back of my mind, but I shook my head to rid myself of them. A separate hand, and the bracelet it wore, and the cell phone it held. We could easily just look down at her hand. Is it there? But we don't know, because it's off camera, so who knows? All of them had been delusions, realistic delusions, because the hand was no longer in my fridge. It seemed more natural to think that, rather than having vanished, it hadn't been there from the start. Nanami being alive and well like this served as proof of that. At some point, I started running. I chased after Nanami. Her form grew larger as I approached. Nanami still hadn't noticed me, even though the sound of somebody running up to you is noticeable. While she walked along, she used the fingertips of her right hand, okay, to toy with the ends of her hair, twirling it. Got it, she has her right hand. As I dashed up, I started to cry out to her. My sister's right sleeve slipped down a little as she twisted her hair. Sensing something wrong, I gulped down my voice. I halted. I'd seen it. It was a very minute sense of wrongness, one that truly didn't matter at all, but... White. Wound around, inconspicuous, a bandage on her right hand. Her wrist. Chapter 8. IR2. Well, that seems like a place we're going to save this game. There you go. That's where it ends for the night. So yeah. I was looking for a logical stopping point. I kind of wanted to end after the Garo Froggy, but I'm glad it went just a smidge more, because, like, that's a chapter end, so a logical place to end. But yeah, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for watching. This ride gets wilder every stream. Every single stream, this ride gets wilder. I have no idea what's... I don't know. I don't know what's real. I don't know what's not real. I don't know what's being projected into his brain. I don't know anything. I know nothing. I may act like a silly clown, but we gotta play more next week and find out. Tomorrow we're gonna do a midday stream, and then an evening stream, both of Tales of Arise. Tuesday only a nighttime one. I gotta do some shopping in the daytime. We can probably safely say Thursday's gonna be Tales of Arise too, but let's not get ahead of ourselves, even though, let's be honest, it's like a 95% chance Thursday's Tales of Arise. But for sure, Sundays will continue to be this at night, because, like, gotta keep this going. For now, though, let's see if there's anybody we can toss a raid towards. Wish I'd left on a scene that had some music, but, you know, it's life. Scene that had some... Oh, thanks, Echo. Like nobody's going right now. That's okay. We'll let Auto-host grab somebody. We got ourselves a monster. Oop, that's not slash monster. Monster, a quote, a Discord. I forgot about the constant codpiece thrusting guy. And, you know what? Chaos. That kind of works. I don't know if I have a better sound effect for this, but that works. Yeah. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for watching. This has been Vipers of Viperland, and I'll see you all next time.